Can't y'all see what they doing here, man? I mean, how much more we gotta tell y'all and show y'all stuff, man? When y'all gonna wake up? If you ain't saved now, you better get saved right now. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. It's written on the arms of the Baphomet. One of the gods they worship is new to some, you never heard it. The female-breasted male genital goat, pentagram forehead as above below. Moon symbol black and white, horns left and right. Been revealed to the world, hidden in plain sight. 3 fingers pointing up, 3 more pointing down. Hexagram satanic, the corona crown. Dollar bill being burnt to the ground until it's ash. Rebuild to the new way to pay with no cash. Corona germ money makes it move real fast. Blockchain digital currency is in the grass. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. At one point in your life, you could walk around, get your hair cut, go around and eat a meal downtown. Take your son to the park, just do what you do. Stay outside as long as you want, no curfew. Yeah, you can move around freely and shake hands. Nobody looking over your shoulder with demand. Open your business and sell without a mask. You try that today and you might get harassed. Stand 6 feet away, you're way too close. You interfere with my 5G digital ghost. Yeah, they're watching every move that I make. I can't take it, mind controlling us. The people don't play, I can't break it. So stay home, stay safe and shelter in place. Don't listen and they might call you a disgrace. Take this mark of the beast, become part of the race. Conform to the hive mind, the AI face. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. I remember when boys grew up to be men and girls dressed modestly way back then. And Pop went to work, Mom took care of the house. And if I talk real slick, I got slapped in the mouth. Dad was the role model, we looked up to him most. Mom taught us how to cook and how not to burn toast. Mom and Dad stayed together, they was there for me. Pop was always in charge, head of the family. But lately, things have gotten so out of whack. God's family structure was under attack. Yeah, the feminists moved to put Mom above Dad. Kids acting up thinking it's cool to be bad. Men dressing like women, acting more feminine. Transgender kids being gay is good, no sin. Pedophilia running wild, going down the wrong path. You burn it down, rebuild it, prepare for God's wrath. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it. Solve and coagula, tear down and rebuild the whole system. Bible prophecy fulfilled. They speak loud, those with ears to hear can hear it. But I belong to Jesus Christ, so I don't fear it.
To stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
there were too many people. That's why we have global warming. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff.
But
if there were less people, they'd be using less stuff.
We interrupt this program for an important bulletin.
They want to depopulate the earth, kill the kids in the womb before the birth, send troops off the war bombs, killing civilians, left total range in the hundreds of millions, same-sex marriage legal in each state. How in the world can they procreate? Make homosexuality normal and fun. It's the humans plan agenda 21. Yo, it's the club of Rome, globalists for depopulation. Bill Gates kill them all with vaccinations, abortion, legal Planned Parenthood stations, humanicide, Margaret Sanger's of the nation, twisted morality, Jacques Cousteau, over 300 grand a day got to go. Wars all over, you can see blood flow. Soldiers return home with the tag on toe. It's their plan to stabilize the world population through healthcare, euthanasia, and starvation. Slowly, with anticipation, Prince Philip, World Wildlife Foundation. See just how deep the whole plan goes, done easily, right up under our nose. Big addition, the human life has no worth. Save the trees and the animals first. Worship the earth to repopulate the earth. Kill the kids in the womb before the birth. Send troops off the war bombs, killing civilians. Death toll reigns in the hundreds of millions. Same-sex marriage legal in each state. How in the world can they procreate? Make homosexuality normal and fun. It's the human's plan, Agenda 21. CO2 line 10, turn the world vision. Too many people in the world are living. Eugenics, the plan in the one world mission. Save the earth is the lie they're giving. Got people on their knees praying in trees and carved out rocks. Dave Foreman called us a disease. Human pox as bombs drop and kill off blocks and blocks of civilians. When will the murderers stop? Georgia Godstone, leave room for nature. TV programs used to captivate ya. Pawns in the game is what they want to make ya. Ask Evan Planker, he won't debate ya. GMO foods and seeds, poison plants and feed lobbyists of the government filled with greed. David Rockefeller, globalist, one world creator, setting up the plans for the world dictator. Populate the earth, kill the kids in the womb before the birth. Send troops off the war bombs, killing civilians. Death toll reigns in the hundreds of millions. Same-sex marriage legal in each state. How in the world can they procreate? Make homosexuality normal and fun. It's the human's plan, Agenda 21. To repopulate the earth, kill the kids in the womb before the birth. Send troops off the war bombs, killing civilians. Death toll reigns in the hundreds of millions. Same-sex marriage legal in each state. How in the world can they procreate? Make homosexuality normal and fun. It's the human's plan, Agenda 21.
And the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices.
Welcome back after many days. Welcome back to the Solomon Report. Hello, NPC.
Many meows, and it has indeed been many moons. It's nice to be back.
Yes, glad to have you. How have you been? Any updates? Anything new we need to hear about?
Well, I must say, when I'm asked that question, I like to say that I'm doing better than ever, but better than I deserve, I'm sure. But brother is still in the asylum, so if you could pray for him, I'd appreciate it. Father has cancer, and he finishes, I think, his last chemo treatment Monday. So again, prayers for that. That would be a great witness if he could be healed. Could really spread the name, a fame of the name, if you know what I mean. Mom's doing okay, so family's all right. Work's crazy as always, but can't do anything about that.
Well, I went to church the last 2 weeks, back to an old church that I used to go to, and then today I went back to a church that I used to go to after the old church, because I'm kind of dipping my feet back into fellowship waters. I realize that while these churches have big time problems that I don't agree with, that I feel some kind of pull to be with other people and fellowship somewhat, or that kind of thing. The first church that I used to go to, it's a very big and very wealthy church, and I feel like they kind of have lost touch with reality in some ways. I think it's a church filled with a lot of comfortable people who lived very comfortable lives, and it's easy for them to donate a lot of money so that somebody else can go and do the uncomfortable work. And they're not doing it. I don't feel like they're doing it locally. I feel like what they do is they plan these expensive mission trips where they go and spend a week digging a well, or maybe helping build a bridge, or, in another country. And it's so planned and organized that a person wouldn't need a lot of training and time to go and do that. Now, they do apparently have one group that does go into some more dangerous territory, so we're not even allowed to know who they are. And they're training with language skills and everything. So there's a little bit of that. But it was interesting because the pastor said, I would like to think that if this church was just suddenly gone, that people would miss us. And he didn't mean the congregation. He meant outside of it. And I really thought, I said, I don't think anyone would miss this church if it was suddenly gone. I guess I could be very wrong, but I don't see what they're doing in the community. And I'm talking about that I used to go to this church for years. And they're big on small groups, and they're big on getting you into these small groups. And then you get into them, and like they have women's small groups and men's, and they're very cliquish, and they're not teaching you how to go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus at all. They're just meeting and talking about scripture, which is fine. But my point is he's talking about how he would like to think that the town of Billings or the people in our surrounding areas would somehow miss what this church was doing for them. And I don't think they've been doing anything like that to the extent that they'd be missed, but I could be wrong. And it's too bad for such a wealthy church that they wouldn't want to do more things close to home. The other church I went to was a church that I used to sing on worship team, and I used to talk to you guys about, and I'd share some of the songs that we'd be singing, and I'd get excited about that. And when the COVID hit, they closed down, and I was very upset with them for doing so, and I told them they shouldn't, and I told them they should repent, and I never got any indication that they ever felt like they should repent. And then one of the last times I went there, which I tried to go back, they were scanning all the kids' foreheads, not the adults, but all the kids. And I said, no, we're not doing that. And they said, well, we're just trying to keep everybody safe. So they would have allowed my children to sit in the congregation, but they wouldn't have allowed them to go down with other children unless I allowed them to scan their foreheads. So that we left, and I didn't go back. But I went back this morning, and I will say that what's funny to me is the pastor at this church I like better. He's willing to step on more toes rather than tickle ears. It was funny, though, because he was saying, God made the earth and it spins at 1,000 miles an hour, and if all that stopped, everything would break apart. And I'm thinking, well, what about Joshua, where he talks about the sun stood still? If these people think that the earth is moving at 1,000 miles an hour, then they believe that the earth stood still that day, not the sun. And why didn't everything break apart? It's almost like they just go against their own understanding of the word. But he did go on to talk about mysticism, because it was about the letter to Colossians and warning against mysticism. And I was like, and so how come he isn't applying this to yoga? And then right after I had that thought, he did. So I was very impressed to say that he definitely stepped on some toes today, told people they ought not to be doing yoga, that they're doing a kind of worship to Buddhism. And I have said that we shouldn't be doing yoga. I very much think we shouldn't be doing martial arts. Same kind of idea. And I know people don't like it. It makes some people angry, or it makes some people confused. But anyway, I will say, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I'm learning to try to have more compassion and love people where they are. And if I'm feeling that I'm being drawn to one of these churches, then I need to be there. And I need to continue to pray for what my role is there, and to quit getting so uptight about the fact that they're 501c3s or what they're doing with their money. I don't think any of that is supposed to apply to me. But anyway, I'm supposed to be there, and you can pray for me if you guys think of it, what my role will be. If it's just to sit there and hear something, or if to be a part of it, or what. Anyway, back to you, NBC.
I can relate to what you mean. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but I remember visiting the church just up the street, and they talk about how much money they have in the service, $250,000 or something like that, and the service itself was probably less than an hour, and I remember walking. It was like a 2-story deal, and I was walking outside afterwards, and I happened to walk by one of the windows where they had all the money just like piled on a table somewhere, and they were just feverishly counting it. And I mean, maybe they were really in good use, but it just left it was bad optics,
Yeah.
I couldn't unsee it after that. And I just thought, man, so I can kind of understand what you mean. And I'm a part of a nonprofit in town that's focused on economic and community development. And, that's a conversation we've been having right now. Is like, we're not a religious organization, but, would we be missed? So, the message that could kind of be put forth there is, a church has to be active. Like you said, what are they doing? Is it in the community, or is it offshore somewhere, or are they just throwing it at some organization to do the work for them? Because I think part of the reason that we're supposed to do it in the community is because, you generate those virtues within yourself when you're doing these works for the Lord. Maybe you got a family that's cold or they need food, and you can quietly go help them fill that need and answer their prayers in that moment, and take that time to witness to them and make sure they have a Bible and so on and so forth. And it leaves a much better impression on that family than if they just they have to bebop through the DHHR or something that's not even affiliated with the church. So I do agree. I think the church should be focusing on the community. Now, that said, I'm guilty of not paying a tithe. I just, help people. But after reading about it, we are supposed to pay a tithe to the Levites. So that would be like your preachers, your ministers, so on and so forth. So I guess the challenge is if you can't find one is to find a worthy one to give your money to. But we are basically commanded to do that. So that's where the tithing thing comes from. And but then I guess we should do that and more then. Like we want to continue doing the other thing on our own, sure. But we are supposed to keep our local churches going by tithing. So that's something I struggle with. So I got to find a local congregation as well to do the same, because then they're supposed to be able to be a place where others can go to get that assistance, and some of the churches are better than others. So I guess look for one that, just rhetorically speaking, look for one that's already doing something in the community. Typically pantries, wouldn't you agree? Like usually that's what you see the most of. They help with utilities or pantries, food, stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess if they're capable of going someplace and putting the kind of money and effort, like for instance, just one more example, this very wealthy church is building this huge cabin for families or couples or all these things, to like a retreat, to go and do something. And I guess I would assume a pastor would be there for some kind of healing. And to me, they're spending all this money on something you could do without that big cabin. You don't need it. Why?
Oh yeah.
Why build a huge cabin? And I said that to a couple of my friends that I did go to the service with, and you could tell that it bothered them. Like, well, maybe they, they need to get out. And I'm like, then get out in a tiny cabin. Get out in a cheap cabin. Go out with your tenting, camping supplies. Why does it have to be this fancy cabin? That's the thing, is they're out of touch. They're so wealthy that, and then people see it and they're like, ooh, I want that wealthy looking cabin idea too for a retreat. I'm certainly going to get closer to the Lord that way. And maybe some people will, not saying that they won't, but it's money that they don't need to spend because they're bringing in so much. They're bringing in so much money.
Well, I did read some things that I guess are kind of relevant, so I'll mention as well. We're supposed to release our debtors after 7 years, and if we do that, we'll be blessed in turn. That was something that we can do. So be quick to forgive debts and to pay our tithes. Those are two ways to ensure that wealth will come your way, I guess. But we don't do that expecting to get rich. It's more like, well, you're going to use those resources responsibly and to spread fame of the name of the Lord, if you will. So to do His good works. It kind of reminds me of the parable of talents in Matthew 20, that's parable of the vineyard. Matthew 13, I think, is the one about the talents, and or maybe not. Anyhow, the one about the talents, how if the ones that had the talents and used them properly, even he was given the one talent that the man didn't use. So I think that's kind of a parable that helps highlight that. Because we can't be attached to the money. It's there to use, but I think the churches could do a better job. Maybe a direct democracy would work best in a church setting where you could actually vote where your dollars went. I think that would be one good idea of a way for the congregation and the pastor to compromise and direct those funds. More transparency that way. But I'll continue searching for a place to support.
One thing that this church does do, the wealthy church, is if you go and ask for help and you can offer a good reason for help, they helped me in the past. So they're a wealthy church. They helped me with rent one time, and then they helped me pay for a storage unit one time because I was trying to move out of the storage unit. So, for instance, if I asked them to help me pay for a month of the storage unit, but still continued to try to have the storage unit and couldn't show a way that I was going to be able to continue to pay for the storage unit, they probably wouldn't have paid for it. But I needed to pay for the storage unit in order to get my stuff out. So they paid for it because they knew I was leaving the storage unit. And then one time they helped me with rent. But anyway, they do help people that way, but you got to ask for it, and you got to know how to ask for it, and you got to be prepared to, kind of apply for the money, which is not a bad thing. I'm not putting them down for it. So I'm saying they are putting their wealth to some things locally, but I don't know how many people know they can go and ask for it. And I don't know how many people would do it because people are kind of weird that way. But let's start with we'll go on and get going because we're already at 2:24, so I don't want to take away from what you have to show us.
Was the issue about the 50C3 status, is that kind of what got us started on that? I wasn't sure.
I just wanted to mention my experiences going back to church, and that I do get hung up on the 501c3, and I don't think you're going to find a church that isn't one. And yes, you can try to make your home the church, and we have done that. You and I have done that, and me and Sean are doing that. But what I would like to do is stop. I've been isolating, so I'm getting back out into the world a little bit better, one step at a time.
And you're right.
And not being
how else are those
angry
people
with
going to hear?
Right.
You know. Yeah, good. You make a good point. I just forgot how we got on that topic, because the reason I brought that up is we're going to be covering the the after school Satan program here in a little while, and they use a 501c3, and basically I kind of see it as a troll. You know, I don't really think that they're sincere about what they're doing, but anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later. That 501c3 thing is a strange animal. It's going to put some shackles on a lot of these churches that they're going to have to do things they don't want to do to maintain it, and I think that's where the real pitfall is going to be.
Right, and the churches they were given more funds if they did close down. I mean, it wasn't like they said, we'll pay you if you close down. But what they did do is said, well, we're sorry you had to close down. Here's some money to help you with that. And as well as schools are getting money for masking kids.
So not only are they non-profit, but you're certainly not going to find a profit in there either, it seems. Well, they're having to toe the line. And so they also keep membership rolls. So we're going to cover some of these Illuminati cards today. I did my best to try and keep everything orderly, but man, there's so many tabs. What I'm going to have to do is just close them as we go. And when I'm able to connect one of these to a news story, if I didn't already pull it up, I'll see if I can have you bring up the story. But we'll cover as many of those as we can. And if we don't get them finished, we can just save some of them for the next time. But I'll cover everything else and then see how far we can get without further delay. Oh, I think I was able to get signed in. Yeah, cool. So I can share the links today. So now I know that today is not February 2nd, but I wanted to use this date because of this story right here. So I'm going to go ahead and share the story. Today's episode will be a little disjointed, sorry. We'll get into the groove here soon. But here is, it's an auspicious type event, because yes, it's February 4th here on the news story, but it was on the 2nd, so 2/2/22. This was presented in Central Park in New York, and it's a knee-high solid gold cube, and it's saying here that it was used to as an NFT cryptocurrency launch. So it apparently was a promotion, but it did remind me of the obelisks that were going up there for a while, which I guess those could have very well been connected to some type of crypto as well, but we never heard about that. So if that's what their goal was, they weren't very successful, right? But here it is again on this auspicious date. We have another strange metal monument. This thing weighs 410 pounds. So anyway, just wanted to show that real quick. Get that out of the way there. So let's go ahead and start with some Torah portions and Tehillum. And I want to do this date so if there is anything weird or special, maybe we'll catch it. So let's go ahead and see. Oh, let's do the Tehillum first. Right here, Psalms 1-9. Also, there's some family members downstairs, so if you hear ambient noise, just know that I can't control it. All right, so let's do. Now these are probably really short psalms, so just bear with me. But if you'd like to read them too, Aaron, we can split them up like we did last time.
Sure. You just tell me which ones you want me to read.
We'll just alternate. Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin with chapter 1. This psalm inspires man to study Torah and avoid sin. One who follows this path is assured of success in all his deeds, whereas the plight of the wicked is the reverse. Fortunate is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of scoffers. Rather, his desire is in the Torah of the Lord, and his Torah he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither, and all that he does shall prosper. Not so the wicked, rather. They are like the chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not endure in judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord minds the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. If you'd like to do chapter 2, maybe. Yeah.
Chapter 2. This psalm warns against trying to outwit the ways of God. It also instructs one who has reason to rejoice to tremble, lest his sins cause his joy to be overturned. Verse 1. Why do nations gather and peoples speak futility? The kings of the earth rise up, and rulers conspire together against the Lord and against his anointed. Let us sever their cords and cast their ropes from upon us. He who sits in heaven laughs, my master mocks them. Then he speaks to them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath. It is I who have anointed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. I am obliged to declare, the Lord said to me, you are my son. I have this day begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. Smash them with a rod of iron, shatter them like a potter's vessel. Now be wise, you kings, be disciplined, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with awe and rejoice with trembling. Yearn for purity, lest he become angry and your path be doomed, if his anger flares for even a moment. Fortunate are all who put their trust in him.
Thank you. Chapter 3. When punishment befalls man, let him not be upset by his chastisement, for perhaps, considering his sins, he is deserving of worse, and God is in fact dealing kindly with him. That's very interesting within the context of what I'm going through with my brother right now. Verse 1. A psalm by David, when he fled from Absalom his son. Lord, how numerous are my oppressors! Many rise up against me. Many say of my soul, there is no salvation for him from God, ever. But you, Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, the one who raises my head. With my voice I call to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain, Salah. I lie down and sleep, I awake, for the Lord sustains me. I do not fear the myriads of people that have aligned themselves all around me. Arise, O Lord, deliver me, my God, for you struck all my enemies on the cheek. You smashed the teeth of the wicked. Deliverance is the Lord's. May your blessing be upon your people forever.
Chapter 4. This psalm exhorts man not to shame his fellow, and to neither speak nor listen to gossip or slander. Envy not the prosperity of the wicked in this world. Rather rejoice and say, if it is so for those who anger him, how much better it will be for those who serve him. For the conductor, verse 1, for the conductor with instrumental music, a psalm by David. Answer me when I call, O God, who knows my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. Sons of men, how long will you turn my honor to shame? Will you love vanity and endlessly seek falsehood? Know that the Lord has set apart his devout one. The Lord will hear when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. Reflect in your hearts upon your beds and be silent forever. Offer sacrifices in righteousness and trust in the Lord. Many say, who will show us good? Raise the light of your countenance upon us, O Lord. You put joy in my heart, greater than their joy, when their grain and wine abound. In peace and harmony I will lie down and sleep, for you, Lord, will make me dwell alone in security.
Meow, meow. Chapter 5. A prayer for every individual, requesting that the wicked perish for their deeds, and the righteous rejoice for their good deeds. For the conductor, on the Nekchalat, a psalm by David. This appears to be an instrument, a musical instrument that sounded like the buzzing of bees. Okay, so imagine the buzzing of bees as we sing this. Give ears to my words, O Lord, consider my thoughts. Listen to the voice of my cry and my God, for to you I pray. Lord, hear my voice in the morning. In the morning I set my prayers before you in hope. For you are not a God who desires wickedness. Evil does not abide with you. The boastful cannot stand before your eyes. You hate all evildoers. You destroy the speakers of falsehood. The Lord despises the man of blood and deceit. And I, through your abundant kindness, come into your house. I bow toward your holy sanctuary in awe of you. Lead me, O Lord, in your righteousness, because of my watchful enemies. Straighten your path before me, for there is no sincerity in their mouths. Their heart is treacherous, their throat is an open grave, though their tongue flatters. Find them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their schemes. Banish them from their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But all who trust in you will rejoice. They will sing joyously forever. You will shelter them, and those who love your name will exult in you. For you, Lord, will bless the righteous one. You will envelop him with favor as with a shield.
Chapter 6, correct?
Correct.
Chapter 6. This is an awe-inspiring prayer for one who is ill, to pray that God heal him, body and soul. An ailing person who offers this prayer devoutly and with a broken heart is assured that God will accept his prayer. Verse 1. For the conductor with instrumental music, for the 8-stringed harp, a psalm by David. Lord, do not punish me in your anger, nor chastise me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I languish away. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones tremble in fear. My soul is panic-stricken, and you, O Lord, how long before you help? Relent, O Lord, deliver my soul. Save me for the sake of your kindness, for there is no remembrance of you in death. Who will praise you in the grave? I am weary from singing. Each night I drench my bed. I melt my couch with my tears. My eye has grown dim from vexation, worn out by all my oppressors. Depart from me, all you evildoers, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be shamed and utterly terrified. Then they will repent and be shamed for a moment.
Interesting. I'll have to look at that one for my father. He's ill. Chapter 7. Do not rejoice if God causes your enemy to suffer, just as suffering of the righteous is not pleasant. David, therefore, defends himself intensely before God, maintaining that he did not actively harm Saul. In fact, Saul precipitated his own harm, while David's intentions were only for the good. A Shiggaion by David. which he sang to the Lord concerning Cush the Benjamite. Let's see what a shingayan is. Refers either to a musical instrument or to a mistake committed by David, in recognition of which this psalm was written. So it might have just been a verbal one. I put my trust in you, Lord, my God. Deliver me from all my pursuers and save me, lest he tear my soul like a lion, crushing me with none to rescue. Lord, my God, if I have done this, if there is wrongdoing in my hands, if I have rewarded my friends with evil or oppressed those who hate me without reason, then let the enemy pursue and overtake my soul. Let him trample my life to the ground and lay my glory in the dust forever. Arise, O Lord, in your anger, lift yourself up in fury against my foes. Stir me to mete out the retribution which you commanded. When the assembly of nations surrounds you, remove yourself from it and return to the heavens. The Lord will mete out retribution upon the nations. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and my integrity. Let the evil of the wicked come to an end, but establish the righteous, O righteous God, searcher of hearts and minds. I rely on God to be my shield, who saves the upright of heart. He who saves the upright of heart. God is the righteous judge, and the Almighty is angered every day. Because he does not repent, he sharpens his sword, bends his bow, and makes it ready. He has prepared instruments of death for him. His arrows will be used on the pursuers. Indeed, he conceives iniquity, is pregnant with evil schemes, and gives birth to falsehood. He digs a pit, digs it deep, only to fall into the trap he laid. His mischief will return upon his head. His violence will come upon his own skull. I will praise the Lord according to his righteousness, and sing to the name of the Lord Most High. This term mete out means to administer. And, right here. His pursuers. So remember, David was being pursued into the wilderness by Saul, who was a giant of a man. Now, he may have not actually been ethnically a giant, but he was known to be bigger than the rest. So he does have some similarities to them. Because remember, that's why they wanted to choose him as their king. He resembled the strength of these other nations. Chapter 8.
All right, chapter 8. This psalm is a glorious praise to God for his kindness to the lowly and mortal human in giving the Torah to the inhabitants of the lower world, arousing the envy of the celestial angels. This idea is expressed in the Yom Kippur prayer. Though your mighty strength is in the angels above, you desire praise from those formed of lowly matter. Verse 1. For the conductor on the Gittit, a psalm by David. Lord our Master, how mighty is your name throughout the earth, you who has set your majesty upon the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings you have established might, to counter your enemies, to silence foe and avenger. When I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place. Sounds like they're not moving millions of miles a minute. What is man that you should remember him? Son of man, that you should be mindful of him? Yet you have made him but a little less than the angels, and crowned him with honor and glory. You made him ruler over your handiwork. You placed everything under his feet. Sheep and cattle, all of them, also the beasts of the field, the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea, all that traverses the paths of the seas. Lord, our Master, how mighty is your name throughout the earth.
A couple of interesting things in this chapter. Actually, one of the cards, hopefully we'll get to it today, one of the Illuminati card game cards is a flat Earth, and it's not disparaging either. It says something to the effect that they're on to something or something like that. So hopefully we'll get to that one. Another thing here to mention is where it talks about making us a little less than the angels, but crowning us with glory and honor and glory. So, the angels were able to see God. I mean, they were in the presence of God even, and but we were made, although Adam and Eve did walk with God in the garden, they seemed to be able to perceive him. It seems like somehow, though, we were not able to, maybe we lacked senses that the angels have. I don't know, it's just when you read that, it made me think of how we aren't able to really perceive the spirit the way an angel would be able to, and yet they fell. So I think that the whole the mechanics of faith are kind of born out of this right here, where we can believe without being able to see or perceive, and yet the angels can do that and still fell. So I don't know. I think that's really an interesting thing to consider. Chapter 9. One should praise God for saving him from the hand of the enemy who stands over and agonizes him, and for his judging each person according to his deeds, the righteous according to their righteousness, and the wicked according to their wickedness. Verse 1, for the conductor call upon the death of Laban, a psalm by David. And I don't think this is Laban. It would have been his Jacob's.
Different spelling.
Yeah, different spelling. So I just wanted to mention that. Verse 2, I will thank the Lord with all my heart. I will recount all your wonders. I will rejoice and exult in you. I will sing to your name, O Most High. When my enemies retreat, they will stumble and perish from before you. You have rendered my judgment and defended my cause. You sat on the throne, O righteous judge. You destroyed nations, doomed the wicked, erased their name for all eternity. That right there is actually the essence of what Hasatan is to be removed from the book and not be remembered. So in other words, the opposite of Hashem, which is the name, is Hasatan, to not be remembered. Verse 7, O enemy, your ruins are gone forever, and your cities you have uprooted. Their very remembrance is lost. Again, the remembrance. But the Lord is enthroned forever. He established his throne for judgment, and he will judge the world with justice. He will render judgment to the nations with righteousness. The Lord will be a stronghold for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. Those who know your name and put their trust in you, for you, Lord, have not abandoned those who seek you. Sing to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Recount his deeds among the nations. Again, spreading fame of his name. What comes to mind here is in Joshua 2, when Rahab is saved simply because she had heard about the deeds and the stories. She had heard the fame of Yahweh. Verse 13, for the avenger of bloodshed is mindful of them. He does not forget the cry of the downtrodden. Be gracious to me, O Lord. Behold my affliction at the hands of my enemies. Who raises me from the gates of death, so that I may relate all your praises in the gates of the daughter of Zion, that I may exult in your deliverance. Ooh, kind of interesting here. We're talking about the daughter of Zion and deliverance. It's not just deliverance in the sense that we're delivered from evil, but you also deliver a baby. So I kind of found that interesting there. Verse 16, the nations sank into the pit. that they made. In the net they concealed, their foot was caught. The Lord became known through the judgment he executed. The wicked one is snared in the work of his own hands. Reflect on this always. So he's given us something to remember here. The wicked will return to the grave, all the nations that forget God. Well, that could be said today. Our nations are forgetting God. Verse 19, for not for eternity will the needy be forgotten, nor will the hope of the poor perish forever. Arise, O Lord, let not man prevail. Let the nations be judged in your presence. Set your majesty over them, O Lord. Let the nations know that they are but frail men. Selah. Well, that completes our Tehillum for today. Now, I do have something that I wanted to share since we finished that. I'll bring this up. This window here has something pretty cool. I want to, for the sake of just displaying this, I'll have to exclude the chat for a minute. So I was doing some research and I came across this. This was not even what the video was about. This was just something that was in another video. Like it was a different topic, but this happened to be in it. I think I could be wrong about the guy's name, but I think it might have been Chuck Missler or something like that.
There is a Chuck Missler, yes.
So you have like white hair and glasses, older guy.
Gee, I don't know what he looks like, but I know the name Chuck Missler is very well known in the true Christ followers, truther movement.
Well, I think that's who this was. So if I'm incorrect, please forgive me. But anyway, let me go with this one actually first. So he was talking about something he had discovered. I think it was even by accident. But he was looking at the Torah Codes. Now remember, the Torah is just the first 5 books of the Bible specifically. And this is what was given to the people after the first Exodus. They were in after the desert experience, they went up, or Moses rather, went up on the mountain and got the 40 commandments and came down, and they had already made a golden calf. So he breaks them, goes back up, gets the 10 commandments as we know them today. But then also throughout that period of time, they're given the Torah. So this is quite literally from the mouth of God. So what I want to impress upon you with this example is each, as Christ said, each jot and tittle. Because you could just change an accent and it changes the entire meaning of a word or possibly even the phrase. And yet this is how precise this is. So the number we're working with here is 49, which is 7 squared. So 7 times 7 gives us 49. Okay. This is really simple. It's not complicated. So if you count 49 letters through Genesis, and I have some screenshots that show the sequence, but just to save time, I got the shortened version here. So you count 49 letters, okay, and you get Torah. Oh, excuse me. Here, 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 and here. It spells Torah in this direction, okay? Then, and remember, we'll go back just to show you, just to remind you what we're doing here. Now we'll go to Exodus. Then there'll be a mystery here with Leviticus because the pattern stops. Then it picks up again here in Numbers and Deuteronomy, but it spells it backwards. So let's go to Exodus. And again, the pattern emerges. And here we go once more. Okay, now we'll go to Numbers. Oh, sorry. And we see the pattern emerge again, except this time it's spelled backwards. And then we go to Deuteronomy, and the same pattern, but backwards. Well, this is quite curious, right? So, again, Leviticus does not follow this pattern. So what does Leviticus show? Well, it does the name YHWH, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yahweh. And this would be basically pronounced Yahuwah. If you notice, there's no vowels here. So it would more or less be Yahuwah. Now, what's really remarkable about this is the name Yeshua is basically, it's the same 4 letters, but with a shin added in the middle. So it would be Yod He Shin Vav He, or Yahshua, which literally translates to salvation. So, Yah saves, right? Yahweh saves. So let's go to the second here, and you'll see how the first 2 flow into Leviticus, Yahweh. The right 2 flow into Yahweh as well in Leviticus. So the point he was making with this too was, and I think I might have mentioned this a week or 2 ago, but all language flows into toward Jerusalem. All your nations to the west, right from the left to the right, and all the nations to the east, right from the right to the left, but they all flow towards Jerusalem. So, personally, I find this really remarkable, because you could pretty much, when maybe it would be more correct to say not necessarily toward Jerusalem, but toward Mount Sinai, because that's where it was all given. So, imagine everything in these 5 books being given at Mount Sinai, and it being given in such a way that this code works out. And mind you, if you changed 1 jot or tittle, 1 letter, it would mess this up, right? And I just find that remarkable to me. But this is the way that he established for his people. And then, of course, Christ embodied the entire law, the entire word. So if we're already seeing this with the word, we can expect to see that kind of thing in other books of the Bible too, which I can share more on that in the future. But for the sake of not going too long today, I just wanted to kind of bring that up, because to me it was so profound. Let me get that screen off there. So we'll spend some more time on that topic in the future. I just wanted to mention it tonight, and then maybe in the next week or 2 we'll do a more thorough study of it. Okay, so
it is confirmed that it is Chuck Misler, and David Morgan says you can find his videos through Koinonia House.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you, David. That was convenient. Well, yeah, it was enough to knock your socks off, believe me. So please do yourself a favor, because he can explain it far better than I can, but I had to share that. All right, and let's do our Torah portions. We've got Numbers 28, 1 through 3, Numbers 28, 3 through 15. And actually, is that? Oh, yeah, doing a different. So there's 2 portions. Hold on. 3, actually, I guess. All right, so let's do the Numbers portion first. And then I got a few links to share here. Our last show was with Gary, so I had a couple more things to share that related to those topics there. And then we'll get into the Illuminati card game craziness. All right, again, we don't read the commentary, although it sometimes is pretty interesting. We're just going to be reading the verses. Exodus chapter 26, verse 15, and you shall make the planks for the Mishkan of acacia wood upright. Acacia is a holy tree of sorts, It's also one that contains a lot of DMT. Verse 16, 10 cubits shall be the length of each plank, and a cubit and a half shall be the width of each plank. Each plank shall have 2 square pegs, rung like, one even with the other, so you shall make all the planks of the Mishkan. And you shall make the planks for the Mishkan, 20 planks for the southern side, and you shall make 40 silver sockets under the 20 planks, 2 sockets under one plank for its 2 square pegs, and 2 sockets under one plank for its 2 square pegs. Sounds like he's made one of these before. So I'd say there's an ark in the tabernacle of heaven, because clearly he's made one before. And for the second side of the Mishkan, on the northern side, 20 planks. And there are 40 silver sockets, 2 sockets under one plank and 2 sockets under one plank. And for the western end of the Mishkan, you shall make 6 planks. And you shall make 2 planks at the corners of the Mishkan at the end, and they shall be matched evenly from below, and together they shall match at its top, to be put into one ring. So shall it be for both of them, and rather they shall be for 2 corners. And there shall be 8 planks, and their silver sockets, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one plank and 2 sockets under one plank. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the planks of one side of the Mishkan, and 5 bars for the planks of the second side of the Mishkan, and 5 bars for the planks of the rear side of the Mishkan on the western end. I forgot to share this link. And the middle bar in the midst of the planks shall extend and penetrate from one end to the other end, and you shall overlay the planks with gold, and their rings you shall make of gold as holders for the bars, and you shall overlay the bars with gold. And you shall erect the Mishkan according to its proper manner, as you will have been shown on the mountain. So, pretty interesting thing here that they're being given instructions to construct what's called the Mishkan. Now, forgive me, I'm not sure if that's actually the ark or not. It sounds like it was. But I'm not sure what that translates to. So if anybody knows and could verify that, please let me know. But I'm pretty sure that's the ark. All right. Now, let's go back to this other Torah portion. Oh, wait. There was another one from Numbers. Here we go. Alrighty. Exodus chapter 25. This one's not... oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's the next Torah portion. I thought it was in Numbers. Alright. You want to read this one, Aaron?
I'll be glad to.
This doesn't have a commentary, so it should be easier to read.
Alright, well, Exodus 25, starting with verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and have them take for me an offering. From every person whose heart inspires him to generosity, you shall take my offering. And this is the offering that you shall take from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen and goat hair, ram skins dyed red, takash skins, and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil and for the incense, shoham stones and filling stones for the ephod and for the choshen. And they shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in their midst. According to all that I show you, the pattern of the Mishkan and the pattern of all its vessels, and so shall you do. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits its length, and 1.5 cubits its width, and a cubit and a half I don't see the rest. Gotta scroll down.
Sorry.
Its height. And you shall overlay it with pure gold. From inside and from outside you shall overlay it, and you shall make upon it a golden crown all around. And you shall cast 4 golden rings for it, and you shall place them upon its 4 corners, 2 rings on its one side, and 2 rings on its other side. And you shall make poles of acacia wood, and you shall overlay them with gold. And you shall bring the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark, to carry the ark with them. The poles of the ark shall be in the rings, they shall not be removed from it. And you shall place into the ark the testimony, which I will give you.
Man, this is so fascinating, because I'm just imagining it as you're reading it. And so the Levites were the only ones allowed to carry this thing. And of course, when they'd go in on the day of judgment, if they weren't pure, it could zap them dead, and they'd have to be drug out by their foot. They'd have like a piece of rope tied around their ankle. So no joking around here. This is serious business. But yeah, this the way this format is, you see how the Hebrew goes from right to left, and the English goes from left to right. So again, kind of referencing that example, Leviticus kind of would fit in here in that way. So it's just kind of really cool. Oh, man. All right, so those were the Torah portions. Oh, and I forgot to share the, well, maybe it'll let me reopen last closed tab. I'm so glad I discovered that feature. Okay, so let me share this real quick, because I don't know if it did. I can move on. I like to share the time and date link here. It always depicts the only planet not visible in the sky over Jerusalem right now happens to be Saturn. All the others are visible in the night sky. So I like to share this every time we do a show, just because it helps put some things into perspective. Now, let's go back to the second, if we can. I don't know if I can actually. Well, I would have liked to have went back to the second just to see what the, oh, here we go. Because of the cube thing, you know. I heard there was an alignment of all of the planets Thursday or Friday. So it made me a little bit suspect there of what was going on. I don't know if it actually loaded or not.
Yeah, see, scroll up and see.
It didn't seem to take.
It still says February 6th.
Well, if you want to follow this link.
Yeah, let's drop. Let me try it on mine and see if I can keep going, but I'll see if I can do it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close that, and we'll start with, this is a somewhat of a partial review. There's some new information here, but just want to touch on a few things from last time. We talked a little bit about Gwyn ap Nud, and this is what they call the king of the fairies and the leader of the wild hunt, which begins in like the winter time. And so I think this has some type of connection to some of these things that are going on. This there was another, oh yeah, so his name's supposed to mean pure, sacred, or holy. Gwyn kind of refers to like a halo, like a circle.
Real quick, I think what it's doing is it's showing, but it's not giving the picture. It's not updating up top, but it's saying at the bottom. So, because the second was Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's saying that Mercury was difficult to see, Venus was great visibility, Mars was average visibility, same with Jupiter, Saturn very close to the sun, not visible. Uranus difficult to see, and Neptune very difficult to see. So it's not giving a picture, but it's explaining.
Were they all actually visible though?
Not Saturn.
Interesting. Well, anyway, I was just curious about that, so thank you for looking at that. So when we were talking with Gary, we covered this stuff about the fairies, and this character here is also associated with Odin. And the reason I bring up Odin is because I've mentioned this in the past, but the Hebrew word Odin actually refers to travail or birth pangs. So again, I think that this character, he's related to birth pangs. So he could be judgment or something like that. Like, the wild hunt is allowed to occur. That sounds like judgment to me. So one thing to note about this character Odin is he has a dark right eye. And so we'll read in Zechariah 11:17, the mark of an idol shepherd is to have a darkened right eye and a withered right arm. So it really makes this character seem suspect in that regard. Also, there was one other thing to note here about fairies marrying people. They can act. The fairy maidens are allowed to marry a male. I can't remember where it was, but it's in here somewhere. But anyway, this comes out of Welsh lore, so I went ahead and brought that link up too. Got a couple more things to share that are kind of a review from last week, or last show rather. Now this is something new I haven't come across. Now Gary probably is familiar with this, but I hadn't seen it before. It's the Tylwyth Teg, or what's known in Welsh as the Fair Family. So these are considered the fairy folk, and I thought it was interesting because this is the one where it talks about the fairy maidens. So they must be careful to avoid touching iron, or they will vanish back to their realm and never be seen by their husband again. Now, we were just reading in, I think, the Tehillum. It was talking about the rod of iron being used to break apart the nations. So it would maybe suggest that some of these nations are actually ruled over by principalities. And I know that the word fairy doesn't really strike fear into people's hearts, but when we say demon, it's like, oh, okay, that's scary. But for some reason, fairies don't seem to be quite as scary, although they were known to be scary. But what I'm suggesting here is that I think that what's happening is, because Gary has told us about this as well, that they're trying to set up their own fairy kingdom, like the Antichrist kingdom would be under this type of motif, I guess you could say. So, yeah, or the bloodlines, exactly. So the idea here is that is this rod of iron breaking apart these kingdoms? It's something that
also
seems to be a consistent theme.
A theme I've seen in movies is where things that are probably supposed to be demonic, but in the movie it's okay. For instance, there was this like spectral movie where I couldn't watch it all. Well, I found it quite interesting, but these creatures were being created by humans, but it turns out they were kind of trapped souls from uploaded bodies. And anyway, they couldn't,
like the metaverse.
They couldn't touch iron filings.
Whoa,
and
that's cool.
There's other stuff I've done in my research that makes me think like one of the reasons they want us anemic and ironless is it's easier to possess. They don't like the iron. Exactly.
So that could be one of the vegan agenda, huh? To take down your defenses, your spiritual armor could very well be the well, not the spiritual armor, but part of it could be the iron in your blood. That's definitely something to consider. I think one of the Illuminati card game cards has something about Frankenfood, so we might get to that one too. But I know that they're really trying to get. Oh yeah, and there's another card I have brought up that it's got two people hanging from a tree, and they have signs on them. One says, "I ate dead animals," and then the other one, I can't remember what it said, but it was basically going after quote unquote normal people, like things that were not really bad, but like the climate and people that don't want to support the climate agenda and eating animals and stuff like that. It seemed like that was the direction it was taken. Anyway, so anyway, this is the fairy stuff, and let's one more or two more links here. We read about the war of Gog and Magog. So we did talk about this a little bit with Gary, but that actually refers to giants. So in England, these are very well-known giants. So, people always want to talk about, well, who's Gog and who's Magog? Well, they probably are giants. So they might very well be represented by nations, but under the influence of the giant, which we now know. What's influence of the giant? Another word for that, Aaron?
Influenza.
So yeah, wish you could make this stuff up, but you can't. So anyway, please consider that they may not be 36 feet tall, or in some cases, some of the videos I've been seeing folks share in the Discord, it was talking about 3,000 L's, which L's was 18 inches. So 18 times 3,000, that's pretty big. So apparently some of the giants recorded were, their heads were in the clouds, literally. So pretty terrifying when you think about it. Which brings up the next thing here. So I guess the point I was trying to make about the Gog and Magog there, I forgot to really bring that point home. With the potential war we're seeing here with Russia, for instance, a lot of folks say that the Gog and Magog war would be Turkey and Russia and some of those nations there. Well, I mean, it kind of fits geographically when you think about it, with what we see going on now. So again, the theme today is talking about the perfect storm. All of these elements are coming together, not just in our country, but on a world stage. So we can't ignore the role the giants are playing in all of this, because for those who haven't heard us talk about it in the past, it's Enza is giant, but in Italian, and it's with a female in emphasis, whereas Enzo would be the male, Enza is the female. So on the last link, when we were talking about fairies could have a husband, so think of the Enza as the fairy maiden, and she can have a husband. So I think this Antichrist character would be the husband of the fairy, or the whore of Babylon, if you will. And so yeah, pretty wild. But we see here in this story of Jack the Giant Killer, this is apparently a much older story than I ever realized. And there's Jack and the Giant Beanstalk. There's also Jack and the Giant Killer. I had a link up for dolmens, but I closed it out on accident because I didn't think to bring it up. But whenever Jack acquires these magic seeds, or magic beans rather, quote unquote, it made me think of something. I was reading about the dolmen stones, Dolmen, and
That's something that Duke on World Bigfoot Radio does a lot of when he goes out and he does Bigfoot hunting. Basically, he goes and looks at dolmen stones as well.
What? That's so cool. Well, okay, so those dolmen stones, they come in a lot of different varieties. Sometimes you'll see them as a large standing stone with a hole through the middle, or somewhere on the stone there'll be a hole. And so what they would do is when people would make agreements or contracts with one another, they would shake hands with their right hand would shake through that hole, and that would be the stone would be a witness to their agreement. And also marriages would take place this way. So when we've talked about the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6, I think it is 6:1, 6:2, the rider on the white horse carries a toxon, a bow. It's not a archer's bow, but the word is toxon, which means a simple cloth or a ribbon. And so you would use that as for hand fasting, so a marriage. So it would almost suggest then that a marriage takes place between this man and fairy or spirit, and that a dolmen stone could perhaps be involved, and a hand fasting ceremony is perhaps involved. So one way or another, it seems like Revelation's talking about this type of wedding. If you want to read more about Jack the Giant Killer, this is the link. Oh wait, I didn't share it yet. And we'll get on to the other stuff. So this is the last of our review from last show. Oh, sorry. The point I was making about the dolmen stones was that what they would do is they would stack these granite slabs on top of one another, and the weight of the stone would create like a piezoelectric effect, like an electromagnetic field would generate around these stones. And what they do is they take those seeds and they would lay them within the dolmen, the area of influence there that the dolmen had, and it would cause the seeds to grow really fast, very abundant, so on and so forth. So I can't help but think of that when we read about the magic seeds that he was given to go to the realm of the giants, which also makes me think of the stairway to heaven, the Jacob's ladder, if you will. And interestingly enough, the first Illuminati card, I put that one here so that it would I wouldn't lose it. But hey, welcome back. But there's only a few that even reference anything remotely similar to magic, but it just so happens this one does. But anyway, this kind of relates to that. And let me get this off here, and we'll roll on to the next examples here. Now, as you can see, there's quite a few, so bear with me here. Just start at this end over here. Okay. I did find an article for flesh-eating bacteria. Apparently, that is a thing. The link I found was in Australia. I think they linked it to a marsupial of some sort. So they're trying to blame it on some critter. But I guess there was an outbreak of flesh-eating bacteria in Australia. So were you going to say something?
Yeah, there's also a common flesh-eating bacteria that people get when they're diabetic, or that's, have secondary problems after surgery. And I'm trying to remember what it's called, so I'm kind of looking it up at the same time. Anyway, necrotizing fasciitis. It's called necrotizing fasciitis, and you can get that after just having a simple surgery, especially if you're diabetic, and it's a flesh-eating bacteria, and it's just it can be killer, it can be deadly, or it can just be very debilitating.
Well, I'm glad that you know something about it, because you know, we're going to go over several of these that have actually already happened, and some that are happening, and some that seem very well possible here in the near future. So please stop me anytime. I tried to only get the ones that seemed relevant. But if you could find stories for any of these as we go, I'd appreciate it, because I just didn't have time to get sources for all of them. Not to mention there's so many tabs already. But so we'll kind of go on a roll here. Hopefully this will. Okay, cool. This one's very relevant. So this is kind of what got me started on this. I found a CFL AIO, which I think is actually supposed to be CI. There's some type of other organization that's got this similar combination of letters. So I think they changed it just so it wouldn't be the same, but it's meant to be reference to that. So it's truckers, local 101 on strike, long haul strike. So it's talking about the trucker strike here.
Well,
the
AFL-CIO is the American
There you
Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. It's the largest federation of unions in the United States.
Okay, so what they did is they swapped the C and the A. I thought that it sounded funny. Now, what's very interesting about this card game is that you can play disasters, and there's different categories. There's like plans. There's groups, and there's disasters, and then there's, I think, maybe even magic or something like that. But they have all these different ways that you can play the cards together, and in some cases you can play disasters together, which means, so for instance, I got another one up here somewhere that's Canada. So if you were playing this game, you could play this card. You could play this card with Canada. I can talk for a few minutes if you need to deal with her. Okay. So in this particular case, you know, if you were playing this game, you could play Canada and this card together, and then what we're seeing happen in the real world is kind of like what you could replicate in this game. Now, mind you, this game was created in '95, I think, and yes, they have added some new cards here and then, but this is a better track record than anything else other than the Bible. You know, like I'm just kind of shocked by some of these things that are in this. So I looked into the dude a little bit, and I can't remember his name exactly, but apparently he was known to have worked with government contractors, you know, and inside people and all this. So maybe he's been to a few of these meetings. I don't know how he's getting away with it, but it kind of reminds me of how they put things in movies or books. It's like they're allowed to tell that way, but not outright. I don't really know.
I think it's part of the ritual too. Part of the ritual is telling us, and even though we don't know exactly what they're telling us.
Well, yeah, and apparently that's part of the mechanics of their magic practice, is that if they tell us, it somehow has an enhanced effect, or it's some karma law that they have to abide by or something. I'm not real sure how it goes, but anyway, let's get off this example, because as we go, you'll begin to see what I'm really saying here. So here's another one. Supreme Court. It's back in the news. So Ruth Gator Ginsburg, who's right there, actually. Somebody that is more familiar with the court might be able to identify some of these others. But she was easy to pick out. So it kind of dates the card a little bit, because she just stepped down. And another guy, which I don't know which one of these guys it would be, maybe this guy here, because he's got glasses. But anyway, there's another guy stepping down. So they're going to be able to appoint. So Biden gets to appoint a Supreme Court justice. Yeah, we really needed that, right? Anyway, this depicts the all-seeing eye pyramid above them. And so, you know, go figure. It doesn't take a lot of explanation for that one.
I wanted to tell you, since you're bringing this up, Canary Cry News Talk has been talking about how this has been coming up in the news with the Supreme Court. So it reminded me, speaking of Canary Cry News Talk, did you hear Basil say instead of saying blah, 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 he's going to start saying meow, meow, meow?
Well, I mean, it's catchy, right? I've said meow for years now. Meow.
I really thought he stole it from you. I was like, no, you're stealing from us. But
Well,
no,
that would
they're
be
not.
flattering. I wouldn't mind. I don't own meow. It's to share. But you know what? Speaking of meow, I did hear something weird. A teacher got maybe
Oh, yeah.
fired for putting a litter box in the.
Oh, they refused to. The teacher
Okay, well,
refused to
Go ahead and tell.
meow to the kid or whatever, and they wanted a litter box in the room. It might have been two separate incidences even.
I think it was two separate incidents,
yeah.
actually.
One was about a litter box, and one was the teacher refused to meow at the kid.
Yeah, so the meowing incident, I think, was on par with like the pronoun kind of thing, you know. And then the other incident, I think, involved them not accommodating the furries or whatever that might be in the school, and so they had a litter box in the restroom. I mean, this stuff's getting out of hand, guys. It makes me not even want to meow anymore.
It makes me just want to get off the grid and never talk to anybody ever again.
Unplugged from the Matrix, Aaron.
Well, sort of, except for I guess I'm supposed to still be connected with humanity, but in so many ways I don't want to be.
I can feel you. So this card's a little bit cryptic. It reads, and some of these are clearer than others, so forgive me. I did the best I could to get the best quality images. Is it really alive, or does it just think it is? So it would insinuate that it's talking about like an AI, although I've not found any AIs named Eliza. You can find the one named Sophia. So I would almost think that this is really Sophia and not Eliza, although there is the story of Eliza Lamb, that Oriental girl that was on film in her apartment building. She seemed very distressed and like she was being followed or something, and then somehow drowned herself in some impossible way. So I wondered if maybe this card was connected to that, because that's really an unsolved cold case file.
Are you
kind
talking?
of thing, you know?
I don't know the story. Oh, a long time ago. Okay, not the gal that was thrown in the water tank thing. That's something. Oh yeah, that one.
What I'm talking about.
Yeah, she was found in the water tank of a hotel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for days. So yeah,
that was the drinking water.
Oh good Lord. So yeah, think about all the implications there. The people were drinking her. But so that weird card. I don't know what to make of it, but you are what you eat. Well, I guess that's kind of relevant to the implications there. But this one's you are what you eat. Now, we've covered this in the past. There was a website, I think it was for a place in California called the Cannibal Club. So there's a legit restaurant where you can eat people. So this one here talks about, you know, just eating people. It's got a crucifix here in the foreground, and I couldn't make out what was written on it.
Doesn't it look backwards, maybe?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure. But at any rate, it looks like a necklace, so belonging to this poor soul here, no doubt. But this puts me in the mind of Jezebel. And remember, giants eat people. So we're really dealing with the spirit of giants here. They're not just demons, they're giants in a sense. They may not be huge, but again, in Matthew 13, we read about the parable of the wheat and the tares. You know, that they can't tell the difference between the wheat and the tares. And it just says, well, wait till the day of the harvest, and then we'll gather up the wheat and burn the tares, right? So to imply the rapture, right? So the fruitful wheat that bow their crown of fruit, those are the ones that are taken and put into God's storage house, his barn, while the tares that stand up proud and haughty are all cut down, right? So, yeah. Remember, we have a promise that this will be taken care of. looks like he's given them enough rope to hang themselves, so to speak. So this one here is pretty self-evident. Global warming, which we all know is ridiculous, but that doesn't mean they still can't create these types of scenarios. After all, after that volcano, alleged volcano eruption, Tonga, I think it was, there was no water. Like it heaved the water up onto the land, and there was really no water on the beach. It was all up on the land. So, some of these things seem kind of ridiculous. It may not stay like this forever, but even if it's that way for a day or two or a week, I mean, that's certainly enough for a climate catastrophe. And just imagine if this happened tomorrow morning, what they would turn that into, because of course they did it anyway. Or if they even knew it was going to happen and let it happen without evacuating people, they'd want to capitalize on the chaos, right? So just imagine they want to play that card with what other card, right? So, anyway, the seas rise. That's, how about some nice beachfront property in Kansas to imply that maybe it goes in quite a way. Now, remember, there is a new submarine, I think called Poseidon, developed by the Russians, and it's outfitted with nuclear warheads so that it can explode nuclear warhead under the ocean sea level and basically throw all the water onto the shore. So it could devastate a lot of different coastal cities. So I'm thinking of New York, anything down in Florida, California's coast. So look for these types of things when they do happen. It could very well be an act of warfare that they just, so they either ignore the aggression because it's part of the plan and they're just going to capitalize on the climate thing, or who knows.
Well, if they thought that water levels were really going to rise like that, they wouldn't be buying beachfronts in Florida and California, which they still are doing.
Maybe they're on a need-to-know basis, and some of them don't need to know.
Well, we're talking like the Obamas.
I know what you mean, but they kill their own. They eat their own too,
Okay.
But who knows? I get the point that you're making, though. Okay, yeah. So again, the Zechariah 11:17. I may have that link up, but just in case I don't, here you can, or if you could find it for me real quick. So this eye symbolism crops up quite a few times in the card game, and of course he's got the bracelet here with the eye, so I guess that's no mistake. And this looks like a dragon, Ouroboros bangle he's wearing too. So the eye and between the dragon here. Okay, it says if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be research. Control 6 science groups. This goal cannot be combined with other goals in any way. So this is a one-track goal, right? Blinded by science. Now, I think one thing we can agree with is that the world is indeed blinded by science.
Science is the new religion.
Yeah, right? Whoa, this dude's got a suspect thumbnail. For real. But anyway, that verse, Zechariah 11:17, woe unto the idle shepherd that leaves the flock. It says that he'll darken his right eye and put the sword upon his right arm. So again, this symbolism crops up a lot with the one eye. This isn't the last card that'll show that. Well, yeah, okay, I was able to keep some of these together. Martyr meter.
Yikes. Jeez, this is just creepy.
Can you believe it, right? I was kind of creeped out by this one. I can't make out what it says here, but this unique gadget is a martyr meter. Now, I didn't even notice this the first time, but there are spaceships, flying saucers here in the background with a robotic Jesus here. And again, we got the one eye type of symbolism, only it's the robot eyes on the right instead of the left this time. But still, this theme with the flying saucers crops up a couple of times. So, we always hear that lady, I think she was the lady that worked with Walter von Braun. I think that was his name.
Werner von Braun?
Yeah, he was talking about the last card they would play was the alien invasion. Well, I never thought that he would be referring to a literal card game, but anyway, so there's that to consider. But the martyr meter, now remember, the War of the Saints is due to commence probably here soon, and so yeah, indeed, a martyr meter indeed. I'd say it's already been taking place. It's just a silent war right now because I consider well, I'm just going to call it the Mark of the Beast. I consider the Mark of the Beast already an assault on people. And this one here is a card just on Israel because there aren't too many countries. There was Canada. Canada was another card I noticed, but there weren't too many countries. So I felt that maybe bringing this one up would be interesting. Gives +8 to any attempt to control the Mossad. Israel has sympathizers everywhere. Israel can interfere in any attack regardless of its alignment, even if it was privileged. The privilege is negated. So I guess you can somehow get privileged status when you're playing, but they can sidestep that counter, apparently. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got roped into this conflict that's getting ready to brew. Because, I'm assuming everybody that's listening probably already knows about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and went on in Ukraine and how that probably factors into the imminent war. Now, here's the thing. Ukraine is not in NATO, so we are under no obligation to defend Ukraine should they be invaded by a non-NATO member, i.e. Russia. So the fact that we're even involved is an affront to Russia. We've not been engaged in any productive peacekeeping talks whatsoever. In fact, we rejected every single thing they asked. Russia just doesn't want to have missile batteries put in countries that are on their border. And of course, we all know that how ridiculous this is, that they want to make Ukraine a NATO member state for no other reason than to have a front against Russia. And they would, of course, litter the countryside with missile batteries that would be capable of hitting Moscow, so on and so forth. Well, Russia's not dumb. They know what's happening. This has been happening for the past 20 years, and they keep encroaching on their territory. And then when Russia actually says they're going to do something about it, now they're the aggressors? Well, I'm sorry, but we all know why they're concerned about Ukraine. It's because our president has dealings with them, very corrupt dealings. And I'm not a big fan of Trump, but if you recall, during the time he was in office, he got investigated for the phone call he made with the Ukrainians because he asked about the prosecutor looking into Joe Biden, and they went after him about that stuff. So I'll give him that. He was trying to get ahead of this, it looks like. But, what are the odds a couple years later when Trump's no longer in office because they stole the election from him, that now we're in a war with Russia over Ukraine? Well, do the math. So here's the thing, though. You won't find anything about this on Fox News and very few of the other news channels, which kind of makes you wonder. It's like, well, how deep does this go? Because nobody's really talking about it. So I'm not so sure it would be any different. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is we might actually owe Russia some thanks. Because on a spiritual level, it's like, well, who could really do anything about this right now? A lot might get uncovered in the process of this happening. I'm not happy that it's happening. obviously, because this war is never good. They're recruiting children into the military in both Ukraine and Russia, I've heard. I mean, this is going to get crazy. But they just started sending U.S. troops too. But they're in defensive support capacities. They're not in active engagement because, again, because of the NATO restrictions, they can't engage they can't engage themselves, but they can be support. But, you know, as soon as some of our soldiers get involved in a death or some type of false flag event, you know, which, by the way, the Olympics are about to begin. Did you hear Pelosi talking about how she encouraged the athletes not to speak out while they were in China and this and that? And it's almost like she was planting the seeds and expecting something to happen, you know? So they might be telegraphing beef with China now over the Olympics. So don't be surprised if there's a false flag in the Olympics to start some shenanigans with them. I mean, I hope not, but because I think what's going to happen here is that once Russia and Ukraine begin, China will then make their move for Taiwan, and then you'll see Iran attack Israel. And then, of course, Turkey will attack Israel. And then Russia will support Syria, who's already getting attacked, and they'll support Iran. So this will quickly spiral into a world war, because by definition, you just have to have like 5 to 10 nations involved for it to really be a world war. So I think that's why we don't really want to wait to see to believe, because once we start to see things happen, it's so rapid and fast. You know, a lot of folks will be really caught off guard by this, I think. Again, the perfect storm. We have the economy has been teetering for years. We all know that it's been a house of cards, that they have just been kept going for the day that they want to crash it themselves. So we got the quarantining, the pestilence. So you got the 4 horsemen, the black one with the currency and food. That's happening now, and will get worse, I think. We're about to see the red horse with war. And the pestilent horse is something that's been around for a couple of years now, but with the flesh-eating bacteria, monkeypox, smallpox, whatever. I'm sure there's more to come. After all, we're not to the Omega variant yet. And that's all slated to end 2023, according to that chart that we've shared in the past. The Omega variant is supposed to come out, I think it was February 2023. So in another year, which the way everything's pacing, it would seem they're somewhat on time. I think they probably anticipated starting this a lot sooner, though. Law and Order card, which, you know, self-explanatory. This one I thought was a little interesting. New World Order tax reform. So you see some heads on stakes here. It's not clear if these belong to politicians or if they belong to people that didn't want to pay their taxes. So it says here, in other words, quote, tax increase. No government ever took its hand out of your pocket unless it had hold of your wallet. So I think that suggests that these might be IRS agents or politicians. Now, because of the decapitation element here, I did have an article to share. When we see this word Baphomet, we normally think of the Gota Mendes, which is not incorrect. But what I didn't realize at first was that this is actually also a word associated with just a head. And it was rumored that certain groups, I don't want to defame a group, but it was rumored that some of these Knights Templar groups and such worshipped the Baphomet, but not so much what we are thinking of, but a head, a detached head. So now I have read out some other things that have suggested that the image that's created that speaks speaks great things or something of that nature. I think it's in Revelation. The image is made to come to life and speak. Okay, well, Odin had a head that did that, and it was a giant's head, and the giant's name was Mimir, and so I can't remember exactly how he lost his head, or how he lost his body, I should say. but anyway, Odin took that head and prepared it with herbs and some other things, and he somehow or another got it to come to life, and it would speak to him and dispense wisdom. So there is some type of strange precedent for that type of talking head that dispenses wisdom, and it would make sense that maybe these people had figured out how to recreate that. So you'll see some anecdotal accounts of like the bearded head. So, maybe that's where we get the goat tea, is that maybe this was a bearded head, like a face with a goatee, perhaps. So anyway, I didn't want to dwell on this for too long because we got a lot of cards to cover. But they go on here to talk about John the Baptist and his decapitated head, so on and so forth. Some speculation there. But I couldn't find a better place to share that. And that's something I've been wanting to share for a while because it's something we need to watch for. Now, I don't know if do you know what the Zoltan is?
That's not like the guy that you put your money in the machine and he sees your future? Okay.
Yes. It's in the arcade, the disembodied head of Zoltan, the fortune teller. It's a lot of times in these arcades. So it puts me in the mind of that right there. And I think we did an episode on this several months back. We mentioned that a little bit. But anyway, let's move on. I didn't want to linger on that too long. Okay, so here's one for drug companies. And the quote here is, "We'll have to put something in the water to make them forget this." Well, that's probably already doing that. And then it just talks about what the card does. I'm really just wanting to read the captions and focus on the pictures here. But pharmakia, for sure. And, this is something that the fallen angels taught us, how to make things from plants and root cuttings and so on and so forth, which, this is even a deeper sin, in my opinion, than that, because at least with the plants, you're getting the whole plant. So it comes with all the other stabilization molecules and so on and so forth. But what drug companies have done is they isolate active ingredients. So this pill is not the plant. This pill is just that one ingredient out of the root or the leaf or the whatever. And so you're not even getting the other constituents of the plant that would normally balance some of those things out. And so that's what makes these especially bad nowadays, is that it's so potent and concentrated.
This is what I try to tell people when it comes to even ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They want to bet their money on that. They're like, it's not Big Pharma anymore because it's only $1. And I say, it was Big Pharma, and you can find these things naturally. Do the natural way. Don't go get ivermectin pills and hydroxychloroquine pills for the reason you just said.
Well, and I do agree with you, Aaron, wholeheartedly. So you can use things like walnut. But see, here's what is hydroxy and ivor for? That's the true question.
Well, I've also read that they can be antivirals and antiparasitics.
Yeah, interesting though because both of those are considered. I mean, you could consider a virus a parasite just the same. It's just different because it's different, but it's really the same. It's an entity. It's a creature.
Yeah, and it doesn't start to live until it enters the host body. It's completely...
It needs a host, just like a spirit. So, and we talked about the fomites, which are the disease vectors, and that word deriving from Fomorians, which are the giants of Ireland, and Enza also being a vector for influenza. So I think that whenever these creatures got eradicated off the earth, not only did their spirits remain, but I think their blood, their filth remained on this earth too. And I mean, I do think the spiritual possession takes place in many cases, but I think that this could also constitute as a form of possession as well. I mean, a high enough viral load or a parasitic load, and you're no longer you. You're doing what the parasite wants you to do, you know? So it kind of reminds me of the same way spirits would behave. So I just don't think that should be discounted.
Have you seen that there's some parasites that get into insects' bodies and they make them do whatever they want? The insect's not even in control anymore.
Exactly. So think about what's possibly in that, you know, juice that they're giving to people. What are we calling that, by the way? You call it the snake bite, or I just want to keep
whatever
the language consistent. So don't confuse people.
I think people understand what the juice is that you mean. If they don't, it's that, you know, the jabbo, the jabby jab.
Yeah, the superhero juice even. So here's, and again, some of these are disjointed. I did the best I could to kind of keep them together. So pardon me for the mental gymnastics here, but even the teddy bear has one eye. Wow, they just fit it in there anytime they can.
Wowzer.
So savings and loans. So there's
and the guy's in all green.
Oh, yeah, like a dollar bill. So there are several that involve the economy, and so that's why I brought several of these up.
There's a pyramid on his lockbox too.
Yeah, I noticed that. And there's the company that keeps buying up all the properties.
BlackRock, and
and there's another one that's Black something else. But anyway, those two companies are buying up everything. So when this is happening to folks, they're coming in and buying it. Which, by the way, the housing crisis kind of started from way back when George Bush was in office. He was one of these cards I didn't bring up was a chicken in every pot. That is to say that a meal on every table, you know, that kind of rhetoric that the politicians spew. Well, George Bush's rhetoric was everyone should own a home. And so that's kind of where we started many, many years ago, where they wanted to get everybody in a home. Of course, most people don't pay off their homes that quick, and most people are on like a 30-year mortgage or whatever. So think how many people got into homes and almost have them paid off, only to lose them in the last 10 years or something like that. So I think that this type of thing was something that they were planning a while back, because what better way to really get your claws in people than to pretty much mop up all their capital into a home that they're never actually going to pay off.
Yeah, if you're going to buy a home, buy it with gold.
And then it ends up being owned by BlackRock or whomever, which China is also buying up a bunch of property and stuff too. So, not to mention all the farm land that Bill Gates has been buying up.
I'm learning more about this sovereign stuff. If you're going to buy a home, you should buy it with gold. And it doesn't even matter if it's the city or the county. You don't actually have to put the deed on it or any of that stuff, and you can do whatever you want with it. And I am not so educated that I can explain it all right now, but I've been watching a channel that talks about that, and also like how to go to court for any reason, and how to deal with the courtrooms for any reason, and how to deal with your trust, which is your social security number, and understanding what that is. And anyway, very good stuff. But part of that is don't ever take a loan out for a house. You will never own that house. Don't ever go and get plates for your car, because now you've just given your car back to the government. And if you've already done so, I understand that's a little bit different. But when you buy anything else, don't get a new car that's owned by the bank. But if you buy something that you own with your own dollars, or buy with gold, buy with silver, don't give it back to the government by putting plates on it or taking out loans for homes and yeah, those 30-year loans. Everybody's like, I have a new home. That's not ever your home. You never actually own it. Even once you've paid off the mortgage, you still don't own it.
You're basically renting it, yeah, from the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an interesting card, which actually it's more interesting after we see the second one I have here. But anyway, so 18.5-minute gap. I'm not sure why they chose to put a half here, but one thing I will mention is I forgot to mention earlier with the truckers. So you got 18 wheelers, okay, but that is actually also 6 plus 6 plus 6, and you get 18.
And have you seen their convoy symbol?
Oh yeah, it's definitely got the 666, and it just like the Google. It looks just like the Google.
And CERN. It looks like the CERN 666.
Oh yeah, that one too. I gotta at least. I'm glad they at least make it. I don't know if they're making it that easy, but I'm glad they're stupid at least, or God's making it apparent to us, whichever it is. Maybe a little bit of both. But yeah. Fortunately, they do have symbolism, and that's what we're told to do. Ye shall know them by their fruits. So we got to study their fruits. And again, with the one-eye symbolism and the stuff like that, that's fruit. It's like the spirit and can't help it. It's like they have to do certain things to appease the spirit, or it's part of the agreement they make, or however it is. I don't know what their contract with the demon looks like, but I'd imagine part of it is that they have to give glory, just like we have to give glory to the Father and the Son. They have to give glory to whatever entity they're serving, and so I think that's where this symbolism comes from. But anyway, I digress. So 18.5-minute gap would be 6 plus 6 plus 6.5 minute gap. So I don't know what that entails, but here it says play this card immediately after someone else plays a plot card. So the insinuation here is that you can take control of the script, because the world's a stage after all, and so you can take control of the script and put your own 18-minute gap in here. Now this is funny because it reminds me of the story I just saw this past week, and I don't know if this is definitely true or not, but I heard that in China they edited the ending of Fight Club. Is that true? Did you hear anything about that?
Sounds likely, but I don't know. I haven't heard this.
So at the end, where, he's not really Tyler Durden, but the guy that the guy that is Tyler Durden that doesn't know he's Tyler Durden, the guy that started Fight Club.
Yeah.
He's standing there with his girlfriend, Carla, or Marla Sanger, I think is her name. Anyway, they're watching these credit card buildings that they've had their own people in. So they were all evacuated. I mean, they did everything to where nobody got hurt, right? But they blew all these buildings up. And he's standing right there with her, like one of the top floors of another building. And they're watching all the credit card companies get exploded, and they come down to the ground in these controlled demolition ways. So he had orchestrated this entire thing without realizing it, and because he's schizophrenic, of course. So anyway, the Chinese ending is that they cut that out, and then they just put like text up on the screen that says the police came and interrupted everything, and everything went, it was a happy ending, even though there's no footage.
Weird. Strange.
It's just that. So they can't play the movie unless it takes the actual ending out and splices that in. So this card here kind of reminds me of that. So imagine how much more of that kind of stuff we're going to see. I mean, the level of censorship we see already. Imagine what's going to start happening with movies and TV shows and or news articles or whatever it is.
It makes me think of the 24 minutes that were taken out of Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, well, what's that about?
Well, I think it tells the real story of what, because a lot of people watch that movie and it was, it's gross and weird, but a lot of people didn't understand what was happening, and I think that 24 minutes gives some more explanation as to why the movie kind of doesn't make sense. And they cut it out, and he he didn't want to cut out. And he said, I'm not going to cut it out. But then he died 4 days or something before the release, and they cut it out.
That.
Right.
So that's okay. Well, I'm going to look into that. Thanks, Aaron. It's funny you mentioned that earlier about the preacher talking about the world spinning at your church.
Yeah.
How if it stopped, it would crack in half. Well, this particular card here does show that. It looks like it's, see, that's India, Australia, India. So it's cracking right through Jerusalem, it looks like. But anyway, this says the tape runs out. So we just had the 18.5-minute splice. Well, here's where it just runs out. When the rapture comes, I'll make, hold on here, I can't read it.
It says, I'll make them wait.
I'll make them wait. They'll never clean my cage. Now give me some more of the tape runs out. Good try. Too bad something went wrong. So God wins. It's like they even know it too. So I found this card to be really strange. Dollars for decency. Believe it or not, this is happening. So, of course, there's your pyramid and everything. And we were talking about that earlier with the church thing.
Getting money for closing down.
But here's a story of it really happening. Now, mind you, this was last year, but still, paying people just to be decent.
Wow. My goodness.
Please don't commit crimes. Oh, had you not heard of this?
No, I have not seen this. This is insane.
I caught wind of that one a while back. But anyway, so it's happening in the cards, though. So that makes you realize, oh, this was definitely planned. And we got many more to go. Bank merger. So it's just showing here like these different currencies being eaten and consumed by the others. So if you notice the dollar here, I don't know what this is. Is that a lira? I'm not sure what these are or if they're even real. But this one's real, so maybe these are. But so I would encourage folks to maybe look at what those symbols represent. This is probably the yen. So maybe the lira and the yen. I can't. That one looks like a cent. So like cents, dollars, like cent. Lira, yen. Maybe that's what it is. Oh, another pyramid. I tell you, they're really clever with the symbolism they worked into these. Now this one's pretty interesting. So here we have epidemic, quarantine, disaster. This is an attack to destroy any place. It does not require an action. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory. And then we have Center for Disease Control. As its action, the CDC can supply relief to one devastated location each turn, just like the COVID funds that, disappeared and aren't really helping anybody do anything. So yeah, all suspect. But here they are, the cards. Oh yeah, here's this really good one here. Okay, so political correctness. Here's used in sensitive pronoun. Yeah, like meow, for instance. Can you imagine getting the death penalty for not meowing? And then this one here, I ate flesh of dead animals. So if this is any harbinger of things to come, it's a hate crime if you don't use the proper, or it's hate speech rather, if you don't use the proper pronoun. And of course the climate agenda or the vegan thing. I have a friend that's decided to go this vegan route, and I talked to them about the whole thing, and because they use the word vegan, not me. I was like, hey, don't we get caught up in some weird cult, because that's kind of what it is. I mean, I understand that don't want animals to suffer. So instead I was like, why don't you look into kosher, because that's about the animal not suffering, and that's high quality meat, so on and so forth. So if you're concerned about the suffering of the animal, then go to your local farmer where the animal had a name and it's not being mass produced. Because the issue is not with eating the animals, but the inhumane treatment of the animals. But of course they gloss over that completely, and it's just that you eat them at all. So I think what this is doing is it opens up the doorway for the fake meat, because we already have tofu and all this other stuff, which it's really funny because if you look at some of the pictures now that we're having the shipping crises, the only thing that the grocery stores do have plenty of is the tofu section. It's like untouched.
And Sean and I did a show on Thursday, and we talked about a company that's making protein out of thin air. No kidding. And they're calling it air meat. So if you guys want to go back to last Thursday, Sean and I did a whole, we were in space, so we did space articles and space related stuff, and that air protein was inspired by NASA.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'm sure they'll probably link that to carbon capture technology, and they'll be making meat out of the exhaust fumes of your car at some point. And
I said, and they're talking about how they're making it out of this, out of the air, and I'm like, out of the chemtrail air, above the chemtrails? Which air are we eating exactly?
Yeah. Well, so there you have it. And of course, in the Utopia plot, the fake meat, they were inserting the virus into the fake meat, and then of course the remedy that they issued in syringes did not actually cure anything. It actually infected them with it made them sterile. It couldn't produce children for 3 generations. So how could you achieve such a thing? Well, you need to modify DNA, it sounds like to me, using messenger RNA perhaps. So anyway, here's another 2 cards: emergency powers, upheaval. So this is starting to look pretty close to what we're dealing with here. Self-explanatory. I thought this one was kind of interesting. They'll never get it, even when the saucers are flying overhead. And it shows a church in middle America with all these flying saucers and lightning bolts raining down. So I thought that was kind of a weird card. There were several that had aliens. Give me a minute. I got a couple more panels to share, and then that'll be all of them. So there's several more, but so March on Washington, kind of the same theme. Play this card along with other actions. Don't like it, no, nope. Really, really unhappy, grr. You even see an Illuminati sign. And of course, they put a fence up in front of the White House. Have you noticed?
Some kind of concrete blocks, but who knows what that's about.
They're anticipating it. Here's a good one. TV preachers. So the prosperity gospel, that type of stuff, very, very dangerous. These mega churches. You even hear the story about Joel Osteen here recently. They were hiding money in the bathroom walls or something crazy like that, man. Anyway, so, you can pretty much tell, like, if you just listen to them for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, tell where they're coming from. Now, I thought this one was kind of interesting. The Irish flu. So he's got aspirin here on the counter, president here, and then his work is piling up, maybe to suggest that he's not able to get anything done while he's been sick. Oh yeah, everything's in, work's piling up, nothing's going out because he's sick, checking his temperature, tissues and aspirin here. Put this card on top of any personality in play. The victim loses its action token and cannot get another won this term. Killing the victim gets rid of the flu. I thought that line there was kind of chilling. No pun intended. Otherwise, at the beginning of the next turn, the victim becomes immune. Interesting. And its owner passes the flu to any non-immune personality in play. These card rules are kind of interesting. You can use markers to show who is immune. There's a note here. This one's particularly long. Note that there are many strains of the flu. A personality who has suffered through one flu card is not immune to the flu from another card. Man.
It also says can you go back
Crazy.
down? It also says the CDC makes its whole power structure immune to the flu.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't have skipped over that. So just insert Fauci here. Now, what I thought was interesting was we haven't heard anything about Irish, anything, as far as I can remember. So this might be something yet to come. But if you remember when we started the show, we were talking about fairies and the Welsh region and such. So it's possible we could still see something like that happen, because after all, it is giant DNA, influence of the giant. Maybe there's something Fomorian, fairy related to all this, even if we're just ignorant of it. Epidemic, we already kind of went over that one, but it was not as good quality. It cannot actually destroy a target, but it can devastate it. Disinfectant, prescriptions, syringes. Oh, I didn't notice this. Body bags. Goodness sakes. Of course, the masks.
And the mask, yep.
I thought this one was kind of creepy because he's still alive, and says here, and stay dead. So looks, unless this is just some generic Undertaker, I don't know. I think it's probably him. So if you remember, he's been in an embassy for the past over 7-8 years now. And to the point his health's even starting to deteriorate. He was who broke the WikiLeaks emails and stuff like that. Now, whether or not it's actually legit, it's an entirely another matter. But, they could just be like a martyr of sorts. But think of who else has been in this realm. We have the guy that got whacked. What was his name? It escapes me at the moment. But there was that guy that did the cryptocurrency thing where he disseminated files through nodes that he had set up before his death, and he had a kill switch on it.
Something Rich.
Oh, McAfee.
Oh, never mind, McAfee.
So there was the McAfee
I was thinking
guy.
of Seth Rich for some reason.
Well, him too, because Seth Rich was the one that was involved with Julian Assange. Allegedly, that was his source for the files that he got from the DNC. And so, anyway. But there's a card, and looks kind of like this dude. Okay, moving on. Dentists. Now, why would that be in here? You're not doing anything this week, Senator. Those wisdom teeth have to come right out. So it made me wonder, especially now that I've studied so much in the Hebrew, especially about the shin, which is the tooth. Why are they taking out our wisdom teeth? Yeah, they got all these justifications for why they want to do it, but
I just had this conversation with my own children. I said, I don't think we need to remove them for any... They try to say it's because you can't brush them, you can't get to them. I'm like, well, they were there for a reason.
Well, what's that reason? So, they say it'll crowd your teeth or whatever. Well, what does that mean? What's it doing? So if your teeth are getting crowded, it's also pressing them all together, and it's creating a piezoelectric effect, just like we were talking about with the dolmen stones earlier. When the crystal slabs are on top of one another, they generate an electromagnetic field. So maybe whenever your wisdom teeth come in, something happens in your jaw, and we can only pretend to know. Like, well, there's a reason they're called wisdom teeth. I don't know. It must be doing something. But I think the fact that they extract it, this is a weird rite of passage that we go through. I mean, we get our license. You get you start driving. Maybe you register to vote. Some people turn 21 and they think, oh, go drink or whatever. These rites of passage are empty and hollow, and part of them is getting your tonsils taken out or getting your wisdom teeth taken out. It's like so many of these things that everybody else has went through, and it's like, oh yeah, you've been through it too, huh? Well, yeah. Well, what's the benefit here? So I think these weird things we just kind of accept as normal, very suspect. And again, I didn't anticipate talking about the fairies again, but the tooth fairy comes to mind here. All right, let's move on. Power to the people. That one's self-evident, but again, we see the ever-present pyramid. I thought this one was kind of interesting. Plague of demons on the U.S. Capitol here, and this demon even has blood on his lips. So this is considered a disaster. This is an instant attack to destroy any place except a huge one. So it would suggest that the plague of demons is a somewhat isolated incident. You must spend an action from a magic group. Goes into some rule talk here, but that's pretty much all there is to it. I was hoping for a little more descript detail here. The light is failing me, so I can't quite see my keyboard very well. Okay, I thought this one was interesting because in Revelation it talks about the us playing instruments, and I think the word's actually kathara, which is like a guitar, but there could very well be some harmonica type instruments too. But I think that's interesting because we read the Psalms. Normally there is an instrument associated with the Psalm. Even the one we were reading about today sounded like bees, apparently. So even maybe think that would be a harmonica, I guess. But anyway, I just thought that this was interesting. It says here, if used with an action, it must be played when that action is first declared and counts only for that action if used for defense. So these are always peaceful groups. Yeah, so anyway, harmonica virgins. But it reminded me of the parable of the wise and foolish virgins, but also that these, they're just singing. So again, strange. There's a few like that. And incidentally, the Torah portion that we read was talking about constructing the Ark of the Covenant. Whoa, I just put it together. So the day for the Torah portion of the Ark of the Covenant, they had the big golden block in the park, and this looks similar to that. And that's not the same measurements, but wow, just now hit me. So maybe that was what we were kind of looking for there. All right, so Ark of the Covenant, write down the name of one of your groups and put it under this card that is, if that group is destroyed, reveal the note. The group that destroyed it also destroyed. Okay, so it's just a really destructive weapon, it sounds like. Unless it was the Illuminati. Interesting. You may change the name in the Ark during your turn only. So, I don't know. Doesn't seem like they're using it quite the same way, but they're treating it like a weapon. But notice here, it has the rings on it. These rods were made of acacia, like we were reading about, right? It's all gold. Really weird coincidence. This one is a good example of when the two cards would be played together. So this would be the Fukushima incident. So we had a tidal wave that came in and hit, which caused a nuclear accident. And this is something that we don't really talk about anymore, but it never stopped leaking tons of nuclear waste into the Pacific Ocean. So for years now, I haven't eaten fish from the Pacific. So, I would urge everybody that eats salmon, particularly salmon, pay attention to where your salmon's coming from. I'm not so sure you can get it out of the Atlantic. I think it only comes out of the Pacific. And in that case, you have to get a farm-raised salmon, and at that point, why even bother, right?
Well, there's river salmon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Get yourself a river salmon or a trout, and stay away from that stuff in the Pacific Ocean, because even after they stop this, it's going to be years and years and years before that radiation's dealt with. And mind you, if you look at a heat map of the ocean, where it's concentrated, where this nuclear radiation is concentrated, the water is actually a lot hotter. So not only does the warm water itself kill off a lot of the creatures, but it's sapping oxygen out of the water. It's causing lesions on the fish, disrupting their DNA, because the energy that's emitted off the radioactive isotopes damages DNA. And then not only that, but it's changing the weather patterns over time. I mean, this has been 10 years now. So I just wonder, like what's really going on now that wouldn't be happening if this hadn't occurred in the first place. So here's an example of where those two things can be played together. And in our real world, we get two disasters at once, right? So yeah, I don't know whose bright idea it was to put a nuclear power plant on an island, but Federal Reserve, self-explanatory. Of course, we can't see the apex, but looks pyramidal, even though it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't
really
think there's a
look like
pyramid on the actual Federal Reserve, but there is in the card.
Yeah. The artist's rendition. As you note here, the liberal agenda doesn't seem to have any end. So I thought this was a funny card.
Pyramids on the shirt.
Oh, yeah. Alternatively, one Illuminati will do the job. The target group becomes permanently liberal. Yep. If it was conservative, that alignment is lost. Keep this card with a link to the target. So, yeah, that pretty much explains itself there. Wall Street. So, it looks like this guy might be one of the bankers, somebody. They're probably going to try and blame Wall Street at some point for some of the failures. The politicians aren't going to take the fall, so they'll probably try to blame the business folks and things like that. So there's another card here, Eat the Rich. So I'm sure at some point they'll start using them as scapegoats to try and satisfy the mob, take these corrupt Wall Street guys. So that's kind of what I'm interpreting this as. Here's the one that Bill Gates likes to talk about, population reduction. Of course, if you have ever heard of the Georgia Guidestones down in Elberton, Georgia, you'll see the plans laid out on those granite slabs in 8 different languages as well. Well, this one even quotes Genesis. Too many people, that's not from Genesis. Too many people making too many problems and not enough love to go around.
It's from the band Genesis.
The song. Okay. I was like, what? All right. I'm not hip enough. Okay. Now, I didn't really want to share this one, but I thought, anything's possible these days. So here it is, robot sea monsters. And that's because, after all, the submarine that Russia created, or the weapon that I was referencing earlier, is named Poseidon. So they do like to name some of these war machines after mythological characters and such. And, it is a robot sea monster. I mean, it's not making any bones about it. It's a robot. So yeah, I mean, watch out for that crazy stuff. Of course, they could probably put a body on something like this and really terrify some people, like with some of these other cards actually happening, it really makes you wonder if this, like a Godzilla type showdown.
If you've seen the Godzilla versus King Kong movie, there is a... Oh, hang on. No, never mind. If you see the Godzilla versus King Kong movie, they make a robotic Godzilla type creature.
Mecha Godzilla?
Yeah, that's like super duper insane with the extra...
Could you do better than the original? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, this one is robotic and actually AI, because it's an AI one and it learns, and it eventually kills the guy that's controlling it. And that's, I knew that was going to make, because King Kong, the Titans are always fighting each other. So King Kong and Godzilla were fighting each other, and I knew that. And King Kong comes from Hollow Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, King Kong comes from Hollow Earth. That's his home. And anyway, those two are fighting, and I knew this new creature was going to make them join forces. So they do join forces in the King Kong and.
Is this a new movie or something?
Yeah, this is in the last couple of years, probably the last 2 or 3 years. Worth watching. They take an elevator that goes to level 33, so there's that.
This card here is Earthquake Projector, which if you've been a long time conspiracy theorist, I'm sure you've heard about HARP and I can't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's like high atmospheric something projection.
Like radio frequency or something.
Yeah, in other words, what they do is it's like a football field size field of antennas, and when they flip the switch, if you will, it generates a huge amount of voltage across this battery of antennas, and then they launch that up into the upper atmosphere like a giant laser beam or Kamehameha, if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z. So they just blast this bolt of energy up into the air, and what it does is it hits the ionosphere and just rolls around on the upper atmosphere, gathering up all this ambient energy, like the aurora borealis type energy that we see. It's basically collecting all that and then raining back down onto Earth. And one of the ways you can recognize this is with a rainbow in the sky, but not a complete one. It's usually just pieces of a rainbow will appear in the sky a few minutes before the earthquake hits. And you can find videos on YouTube of this phenomena in China. I think in Sichuan province in particular, the really, really bad earthquake that happened there a few years ago had rainbows in the sky prior. And it was a clear day. There was no clouds or rain or anything like that. So I didn't actually pay attention to this card when I downloaded it. I just noticed that it was shooting the earthquake into the ground. So yeah, I don't doubt that they're doing that. That's probably how they created the tsunami to hit Fukushima. So yeah, they can combine some of these disasters. Oh yes, so here's the Eat the Rich card. Make sure you eat your broccoli, Carefully orchestrating the media, you create an insane groundswell of anger, blaming the wealthy and powerful for everything.
I mean, that's certainly happening for quite a while
right
now.
At that door of that one, yeah. Goodness gracious. Which that would fulfill some of the people talk about the blue kachina, the red and blue kachina prophecies that the Native Americans keep. I think it talks about they take all the rich into the streets, and I don't know what they do to them necessarily, but they put an end to the corruption. This one, there's another one for Republicans and Libertarians, but I just grabbed this one. Democrats, here they're praying to a golden donkey statue.
What are the Libertarians praying to?
They're hanging in front of the Statue of Liberty, and then the Republicans are worshiping an elephant. I didn't get the other two, though. And hold on, I got one more panel and then we'll be finished. How much time do we got?
We've been going for 2.5 hours, and
Oh, sorry, dude.
That's okay. When you
I felt like we already did, but I wasn't sure.
I just by panel, or you got to go through each one of those links that you have there?
Well, we can stop if we're already that long. I didn't realize how long we've been going. But yeah, there's some really good ones in here, so I can try to save this for next time, or I can just fly through them really quick.
Why don't you fly through them?
Okay. Yeah, I guess since we're already over, why not? Okay, so just a refresher. September 23rd, 2017 is when we had this alignment occur that we find in Revelation 12:1. So I have a few other panels here to go over, but I just wanted to refresh people on this particular thing, and that's why this graphic's here. I know it's a little off the topic at the moment, but realize also how many of these things are happening since this date occurred. And this is the part that talks about the birth of the man-child. And when you've had children and you're from the medical profession, so can you tell me what it's called when a baby is born, like when it first reaches the when its head first enters the world?
Crowning.
It's called crowning. So when the man-child, so this was the day that Jupiter exited the legs after being within Virgo 9 months. So Jupiter was in retrograde for 4.5 months, and then stops and goes back out, and that very day exits. So this was Judgment Day, basically, that year. You have your, it's saying here the 22nd of September was Yom Teruah. Okay, so the Feast of Trumpets. So when oh wow, that's interesting, because we read about the Lord coming with the sound of a trumpet. So, well, that's pretty interesting, actually. So I thought this was Judgment Day. So anyway, the very next, let's see, Feast of Trumpets was the first. Then Judgment Day is after that. And then you'd have Tabernacles. So those series of feast days occur in that period of time. And remember, one of the other links I think I have, give me just a second here. Oh, goodness sakes. We're going to be on. I'm so glad that you chose to let me go on, because I forgot what I was even going to talk about. There's a few things that we're going to talk about that are just really wild. Yeah, I got the links up over here too. Okay, man, that's so cool. Okay, so anyway, again, context is that now I understand if everybody doesn't agree with me, but I kind of feel like the tribulation started this day, because tribulation is connected to travail, right? Which is the pregnancy, this woman being travailing in birth, which the word for that is Odin. Again, with the one eye symbolism, and he crowns the Jupiter's crowned that day, and then we read after verse 1. Okay, she has 12 stars in her crown, and the baby crowns, incidentally. So there is that to mention also, that she has a crown. Now after this, the dragon comes having 10 heads and 7 crowns. And another word for crown is coronas. So we didn't see all this crap start until, 2019? And then here we have all these coronas now. So, and are they, and it certainly feels like they're coming after the man-child. Do you identify as the man-child, Aaron? I kind of identify as the man-child. So, yeah. Anyway, let's move past that. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage for what we're going through here. And I don't know where I intended this to fit this graphic, but just because it's up, if you go to Isaiah 11, it's a great chapter. Talks about the second Exodus, the 7 spirits of the Lord. And the first one is Ruach, spirit of the fear of the Lord. So, to understand that we must be fearful for these judgments, this time that's coming upon the earth, that alone makes us want to go back to the Word and be like, okay, well, what's the Father saying about this? Dad's coming home. The Father's coming home. We better straighten this place up. It's kind of how it makes me feel, right? So, anyway, I just think that this graphic's really powerful. Let me see if I can get the image full screen real quick, just in case anybody wanted to get the picture full, like if you wanted to take a screenshot or something. So you'll notice that there's the Ruach spirit of the fear of the Lord, followed by spirit of knowledge, spirit of might, spirit of counsel, spirit of understanding, spirit of wisdom. And then in the middle here, this would be representative of Pentecost, Ruach spirit of the Lord. And so just like with your feast days, we were just talking about with the 9/23/2017, that would be the Feast of Trumpets, would be like this one right here. Then followed by your Day of Judgment or Atonement, followed by Tabernacles. And then, or we could start on this side with the Spring Feasts. That actually makes it make more sense that way. So in that case, should be a Feast of Unleavened Bread, which makes sense because the fear of the Lord in Egypt, when the plagues were coming upon Egypt, there was a lot of fear. And then, of course, the firstborns were taken. So they were made to take the lamb's blood and put it on their door, and then eat the lamb without breaking any bones, burn the lamb carcass whole, and then put the blood on the door and just wait to leave. And they had to leave in such a hurry that they couldn't take any yeast with them. So Feast of Unleavened Bread is having that fear of the Lord, knowing that you're in a time where you get ready to leave. So we got to be ready to leave, right? So that's that kind of fear here. You have to not be attached to the Babylon or Egypt. And so then Feast of Unleavened Bread, followed by Passover, which again, the lamb, and then the first fruits, which, what did the angel of death take? The first fruits, the firstborn. So I find that very interesting and very powerful, not to mention Christ was then crucified on Passover as the lamb, and also did not have his shin bones broken, much like the lamb. You're not allowed to break its bones when you eat it. And he rose on the third day, and so he was the first fruits. And so where's the unleavened bread part of that? Well, he freed us from spiritual captivity. His blood frees us from bondage, spiritual bondage. One of the things that was important to note about the unleavened bread situation was that they were in Egypt working without any days off, long hours. They was even increasing their workload and then punishing them if they didn't fulfill it, which they knew they couldn't, but they were doing it anyway. They were under such tyranny that the Lord saved, took them out. And then over here you would have your Feast of Trumpets, Judgment Day, and then your Tabernacles. Now normally you see these over on the left, I think, typically, but sequentially it kind of makes sense that way. Now Nisan in spring is your first ecclesiastical month, but your first civil month is actually Tishri, which is September. So one way or the other, you got the first month and the seventh month, which together make 17. Kind of interesting. And then Pentecost is 50 days after Passover. So that's why I like to make this one start with the spring feast, because unleavened bread, Passover, first fruits. Well, this should be 50 days from Passover. So maybe you would even label this one Passover. But anyway, this one would be Pentecost is 50 days from Passover. And then you continue on and you'd have your fall feasts. So summer ends. This is summer. This summer ends. So Jeremiah poses the question: summer is over. Will we be saved? Right? The work is done here. The axes are broken. Marriages begin. So on and so forth. Really interesting. So again, that's a very profound, powerful graphic. And the scripture at the bottom, Isaiah 11, and there shall be And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord, right here, Pentecost, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom, here we go, wisdom and understanding, and the Spirit of counsel and might. So might and counsel, right here. The Spirit of knowledge, right here, and the fear of and the Spirit of the fear of the Lord. So all of these will rest upon this person called the branch. And what I thought was really cool, and I just found this out recently when somebody shared this picture. Of course, we weren't really talking about scripture, but I happened to notice they shared the stages of the cicada. And where does the stage of the cicada end? Egg nests in a twig, in a branch. So I kind of wonder if this could possibly connect to Revelation 9, because we got the king of the locusts there. I don't know, just something to consider, because they get deposited as an egg in the branch, and then when the branch falls to the ground, they make their way into the ground, and they begin to eat sugars off the roots, and then they turn into these creatures here that are known as instars, and they burrow to the surface to become the imago version of the cicada. I just found that fascinating, again, because 17-year cicadas, and you got 1 in 7 here. So I don't know, maybe it's nothing, but God's kind of funny like that sometimes. All right, so I probably won't have to talk as much as I did there, but that was profound to me, so I want to make sure we talk about it. And okay, so we're going to talk about this crazy group, the Satanic Church. Man, I can't believe this is even happening. But here they got Adopt a Spot, the Satanic Temple, Northeast Gulf Coast. And here you can, making it clean, right? Yeah. Well, there's like fighter jets in the background. Pensacola must have those go overhead a lot to put them on their sign. Anyway, we're going to get into this a little bit. Okay. Now, these trash bags are advocating for some really terrible things. So I'm not going to add any glory to them, but we got to talk about it a little bit. Rally for religious reproductive rights. Well, notice how they're doing this in Utah. I understand people feel a certain way about Mormons and such, but, you know, it's still, I'm sure you'd probably still get along with the folks there better than in LA or San Francisco, you see what I mean? So there's still a big divide, as it were, in how they see and do things. And so it's like they're going to these places on purpose to try and agitate. So it's really hard for me to respect these folks and take them seriously, because I think they lack sincerity. I don't think they necessarily even really believe in what they're doing. I think they're just trying to find loopholes in the law, and they're just trolling people in a way. Now, of course, I don't think they realize they're gambling with their very souls, but anyway, so there's a story that related to this, but that's not the one I was focusing on. So I'm going to skip to the next panel. I grabbed some of this stuff off their website. Look at that. A beehive in the background. I didn't notice that the first time. Very, very interesting. Anyway, this is a picture of one of their altars. I can't quite make it out, but it looks like a goat skull, which again, remember what we were reading earlier, the Baphomet. There it is. It's the head. Goodness sakes. Well, there it is, folks. Okay. That's a piece of rotten fruit if there ever was one. Okay, so they made a replica of their baby Baphomet. And as you can see, this is I can't remember. Oh, Illinois. Yeah, okay. So this is the statue they have in the Illinois Capitol. And so, of course, they got a Christmas tree in there. But yeah, why not, right? So they created this thing with their mimicking the swaddling clothing and all that jazz. So you see where Christmas is so dangerous. It's not because anybody that practices Christmas would be welcoming of this. It's that this is basically the same thing. And they know it, and to them it's a big joke. So let's continue here. Again, remember, goat. The goat dude is also pandemic, pandemonium, which I realize now after the last episode we did. I was doing some research on Dante's Inferno. And do you know what the capital city of hell is named?
No.
Pandemonium.
Well, that makes sense.
So, yeah. And that's where, and Christ gave one of his most famous sermons. I think the Sermon on the Mount was at Caesarea Philippi, which is where Pan worship was most famous. So I think that's where he talks about the gates of hell will not prevail. So, these people were, and then of course we had the gates of hell on display, which is affiliated with Inferno. So again, there's the pandemonium connection there too. So, and oh yeah, just another shot of I didn't realize I had a much better picture, but there's the Christmas tree. Yeah, anyway, man, this is great. Okay, so, and I got a link for this, but I have a few graphics I just wanted to get out of the way. So look at the charming little graphic they have here, a pitchfork stylized out of a pencil. It even looks like they got a dark and a light side here to the tines. But they started an after-school program that we'll read about here in a minute. So I didn't know when those panels were going to end. But so again, 33 days before that September 23rd, 2017 date, this occurred 33 days prior to that date, prior to the birth of the man-child, the crowning of the man-child. The first path was made, and remember, this passed through. It began here at Salem, Oregon, passed through 6 other Salems before exiting here at the 33rd degree parallel. Oregon was the 33rd state added to the Union, exits at the 33rd parallel, which is where Jerusalem is. When it began here, the sun went down on Jerusalem as the eclipse began here. So I think there's too much going on there to ignore this. And that we got our second eclipse path. Now I looked, and there are others that go through here, but this one here makes the second slash of the X crossing right here in Illinois. Oh, that's where the baby Baphomet is. What do you know? I find it hard to believe in coincidences anymore. Okay, so if you go to Ezekiel 9, can you bring that up for me? If you're not too busy, or are you dealing with children? Okay.
Ezekiel 9, what?
Specifically Ezekiel 9:4. But that kind of puts this into context. So the angel with the inkhorn is told to go through the city and mark everybody on the forehead with an X that sighed and cried over the abominations.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof.
Yes. So, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Fine. But again, this 33 days before the birth of the man-child, and then this is about, mid-trib. So, this is 7 years after, actually. So 7 years after that, the second X. So I'd say if the judgment's coming, it's going to be, this is a year after the pandemic's scheduled to end in 2023. So I'd say the timing on this is about right. It's pretty interesting. Now with the baby Baphomet, Do you know where the capital of Illinois is geographically in that state?
Brenda would, and she's in the chat. She could tell us.
I would just be curious to know how close it is to where the X overlaps. I guess if you just knew if it was in the north or the south. Seems like
I don't know, but I could look it up.
Well, anyway, I'd be curious to know. Well, I'll keep that up for now, and we'll just go to the next one. And I got the links. Okay, so I was waiting to get to this panel here where the Illuminati cards start again, but we're going to go over the Satan, after-school Satan program stuff first, because that's what I really wanted to get covered tonight, and it just kind of got lost in the shuffle there. I didn't know where it was
Looks
exactly.
like Springfield is kind of dead center. Springfield, Illinois is kind of dead center.
Like up here. Well, that's still pretty close. So, anyway.
It's kind of like, you see that bigger part that juts out on the left?
Yeah.
It's kind of in the center where that is. So if you went to the center part from there, that's where Springfield is.
Okay, so about right here then. Interesting. Folks, that's too close for comfort. All right. And all right, now that I got those up, let me bring this. Oh, okay. I had a link here about flesh-eating ulcer. I'll just copy that and drop it into the chat. I didn't get a chance to bring that up earlier. I had an appointment earlier, so please forgive me for not being more well-organized, folks. The appointment went longer than I expected it to. Did you ever find the Zechariah 11? Because I got a link for that too. So.
Oh, I just pulled it up on my eSword. Sorry, I didn't know you wanted me to share it.
No, it's fine. I just didn't know. So there's the Zechariah 11, verse 17, talks about the one-eye symbolism. I can't remember why I brought... I can't remember what I was wanting to show here with Matthew 18:6. There's that one. Oh, yeah.
What did you say, Zechariah 11?
Zechariah 11:17 is where you'll read about the idol shepherds and the one-eye symbolism. That's their mark. So that's given us something to look for. Now, this Matthew 18:6, I'll just go ahead and open it actually, because this is relevant to what we'll be reading about now with the Satanists messing with the kids. One moment while it generates. Okay. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. And of course, we can see cross references. Matthew 8:5, and whomsoever welcomes a little child like this in my name welcomes me. Continues with this. And then another one here in Mark 9:42, but if anyone causes one of those little ones who believes in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be thrown into the sea. Again, in Luke 17:2, it would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and to be thrown into the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. I mean, right there, we see this in 3 Gospels. You don't always get more than 2 witnesses. So this is something that, they're making sure got pointed out, So anyway, I just wanted to cover that because now when we read this, it's hard to believe this is even happening, honestly. But I work with children, so if one of my clients told me they wanted to do this, I don't even know how I would react. So Salem, Massachusetts is their headquarters. Now remember where the eclipse began, Salem, Oregon. Now mind you, that's not the same path that it took from Salem, Oregon diagonally, but this might be where the other I would be curious to know if, okay, I already closed it, but I would be curious to know if the 2024 eclipse pathway went through Salem, Massachusetts. That would be interesting to note. I need to look at the path for that before it happens. Anyway, let's read this and get this out of the way. After School Satan is an after-school program project of the Satanic Temple, which we got their website to bring up here in a minute too, for good reason, and I'll explain why in a minute. An American political activist, see, they stylize themselves as American political activists, religious organization based in Salem, Massachusetts, and is sponsored by Reason Alliance Ltd., 501c3 nonprofit organization. It was created as an alternative to Christian-based after-school programs, specifically at schools that host the Evangelical Good News Club. I didn't actually know anything about this. Just for the sake of contrast, the Good News Club is a weekly interdenominational Christian program for 5 to 12-year-old children featuring Bible lesson, songs, memory verses, and games. It is the leading ministry of Child Evangelism Fellowship, the CEF, which creates the curriculum translated into different languages for use. So they're, they just think it's so important that we need a counterbalance to that, right? So continuing here, the program does not teach about Satanism, nor attempt to convert club goers. Do you really believe that? Instead, they don't need to, because just them being around them, they infect the minds of these children. Anyway, sorry. I'll try to not get distracted. Instead, they teach about rationalism and understanding the world around us. It is against the beliefs of the Satanic Temple to teach religious practice in schools, which is opposite to how the Good News Club functions. Then why can't they just name their club something else, right? Why do they need to put Satan in there? Couldn't they just call their club the American Political Activist Club, and still do everything that they're doing anyway, you see? But no, they can't do that. They have to give glory to their Dark Lord. So that's what makes me angry about this, is that they're clearly not sincere. They're clearly being deceptive, but they're hiding behind the law. Okay, so the Satanic Temple does not worship or believe in a literal Satan or in anything supernatural. Rather, they use Satan as a symbol of freedom from the rules of the right-hand path religions. So in other words, they follow the left-hand path. And so, what did we read in Zechariah 11:17? That their mark is to have a darkened right eye and a withered right arm. And here we got them saying specifically that they don't want to follow the right-hand path, that they want to do the left-hand path. So, and I have a picture of like their logo. I don't know if I have it handy, but somewhere I did have it where they had a picture of their, yeah, here it is. Okay. 1 minute. And here's another picture from their website. So, have one eye? He does.
And a pedo swirl.
Hello? Oh, I thought that the Satan attacked our stream.
There's also a pedo swirl on the other eye, is what I was trying to say, but I accidentally muted.
Good catch. I'm glad I
Skype
shared this
as well.
Well, then there you go. So you see what I mean? They're getting access to the children. But right there, ye shall know them by their fruits. And look at what's in his right arm, or his right hand. A shepherd's cane. Of course, its style has to look like a candy cane. But we've covered this in the past. That's the Hebrew letter L. The Lamed is a shepherd's staff. So they're saying here the After School Satan Club is an after-school program that promotes self-directed education by supporting the intellect, creative interests of the students. Again, you could do all of that and take the Satan out, right? So they clearly can't help themselves. But that's, again, what kind of makes me mad about this, is that they're clearly deceptive. We're not going to read all this. I just wanted to read enough of it for you guys to get the gist. But I do want to go to their website real quick. Did I share this trash bin? Hold on. Okay. And then let's go to their official website. And there's a reason for that. So the reason we're going to go to the website is because you can actually, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cover up the chat again. You can actually find the Satanic Temple nearest you. This really alarmed me because the nearest one for me was about an hour and a half away. And what I thought was really interesting was it was in close proximity to a national forest and an interstate. So if you think about what you would need for a successful human trafficking operation, you'd probably prey on hikers, campers, you'd use the interstate to traffic children or people, whomever, whatever. So yeah. Now let's see if I can find there's a place to find the hold on, I guess this wasn't the exact link I was looking for, but it is their website, so bear with me. If I could hopefully find a picture of the guy, the leader of this, Lucian Greaves, he literally has a dark, his right eye is out. He only has a left eye. So I mean, you really just can't make this stuff up. So
well, I'm happy to report that Montana doesn't have a single satanic congregation for the Satanic Temple, nor does Wyoming or North Dakota or South Dakota.
Oh, did you find the thing?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. I was working on the phone.
I had to go to join, and then I had to go to their website and then find join, and then find a congregation.
Okay. Find a congregation, thank you.
So they don't, none in Wyoming, none in Montana, none in South Dakota or North Dakota, none in Oklahoma or New Mexico or Nevada, oddly. There's 2 in Washington.
I would have expected some to be in Nevada.
Quite a few in Texas, I know. Quite a few in Florida. None in the Carolinas or Virginia. One in, what is this? New York City, of course. So there's a lot of states that don't have them, but.
So, Michigan, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Atlanta. See right here in the middle of West Virginia. Right here in the middle of West Virginia, which is the closest one to DC. So, yeah, I was pretty disgusted by this. So if, like I said, if you zoom in, yeah, it'll let me zoom in. Awesome. I guess if there's that few, this probably isn't as small as I thought. Sorry, I can't know how to get can't get that stuff off. Anyway, what I wanted to point out here is here's the capital of West Virginia, and so you got interstate right here, and then you got these other interstate type highways. Oh, I can click that. Anyway, sorry, that's not as easy as I thought. Anyway, but the point is, I'm trying to make here, they're right on where 2 interstates meet, and this is also a national forest. So thank you for looking that up on a national level. So if you live near one of those, please, maybe put some signs up or something, just to make people aware, but maybe at the gas stations or something. I'd say we look at the missing persons reports. Might be linked to something like that. All right, let's fly through the rest of these, and then we'll be finished. So the Illuminati, man, you're so lucky to have a cat.
Yeah, he's very loud right now.
Still wanting to get rid of him? Is he driving you
No.
crazy still?
I don't ever seriously want to get rid of him. What I did is I put a door down between I sleep in the basement, which has got really nice egress windows, so it's not a basement like you'd think. But I put a door down there so I can shut him out now.
Okay.
Let's fly through these.
So this is what the deluxe edition, anyway, would look like. And so it just shows how the violence, money, more violence, propaganda, all these different tools.
Puppetry.
Yeah, to make the puppet. Oh, I Pet Goat opens with this scene of the hand with the marionette hand. So, all right, so let's see what we got next. Okay, well, this is why I ordered it this way, because I was going to use this one to segue into the Satan junk. So they're trying to change their image and everything, bingo every Friday. So we already covered that nonsense. So let's move on. Oh, yeah. Well, here's another one from the Illuminati card game. Daycare centers. So the after-school Satan program is literally in the cards. Drop your kids off and we'll take care of them, so to speak. Gosh, man. So there's that trash. Two cards that kind of make you... another thing they advocate is abortion. So, give you a couple guesses what they want to do with those aborted fetuses and why they would even care. The irony in that is that everybody that advocates for abortion, their parents chose life. So, it's just boggles my mind that people can advocate for that when they themselves are beneficiaries of the decision that had been made. Again, here's one of the weird cards that depicts an alien. Don't spend it all in one place. That's funny. Of course, an alien is even a word we see in the Bible. It just means foreigner. But, I think there's implications being made here. Also, they call it foreign aid, which we now know that it's becoming more public knowledge that the 6-foot killer is really just this spliced with corona. So the gain of function that we keep hearing about from Mr. Fauci was that he actually blended the two viruses together. He has been involved in HIV research for over the past 20 years, I think, corona and HIV. So it's no surprise to me that he combined them two together, which is why they're starting to see people that get the juice, they're developing AIDS. Because, they're putting 3 doses of it in their body. What do you expect? But even if it weren't AIDS, it's still destroying their immune system. So they're calling it vaccine-induced AIDS or whatever, but it's still AIDS. Either way. It's HIV AIDS, I should say. Again, here's more alien abduction type stuff. Who knows what kind of role that's going to start playing here soon. Another one eye deal going on here. And so red left eye. Whew, man, scary imagery here.
Brenda's asking what kind of sign were you saying to put up if you have one of these satanic temples nearby?
Just print out their ridiculous child-friendly graphic and just say, hey, just thought you should know these trash bags are in the area, I don't know, spin it any way you want. I just think that they should be put at like the gas stations or anything. Like, see, in my case, they're all
like
around
a warning.
The interstate, So, like, I was thinking about going to the gas stations, putting something up, being like, hey, if you have children, you need to know where they're at. Things like Snapchat, for instance, reveal your location.
So does Instagram. People do it all the time, where they take a picture of their food and they put exactly where they're
Oh,
located.
yeah, exactly.
I did a video about this called The Dangers of Instagram a while ago, and I said just exactly that. When you're putting your location, anyone can find you.
So I just think that we take too much for granted. You know, they're literally predators. I mean, they even eat people. So anyway, this one here is the weak link. Again, we see a dagger tattoo with a Illuminus symbol, which this would kind of indicate the Opus Dei, which are known as the assassins for the church. I would imagine that's what this is being depicted here. The enemy treasure was well guarded, so you studied the keepers and found one with a fatal weakness. Ooh, so what is that? That doesn't look exactly like Bill Gates, but some Poindexter dude. He's the weakest link. Like a demons again. Okay, didn't mean that twice. Okay. Rifkinites. I thought this one was a really interesting card because fanatically anti-technology. So these folks just destroy all electronics and technology. But I've never heard of this term before, so it's something I need to look up. But it did remind me of the plot in Dune. Now, this doesn't necessarily happen in Dune, but if you follow the lore and you read the books, especially in book 4 and some others, it'll talk about this thing called the Butlerian Jihad, which was something that happened. I'm going to read about it. So before Dune, there was a period of time when humans were making robots and having them work for them and all this, and robots were even delivering babies and so on and so forth. And it got to the point where the robots developed some type of intellect where they're like, oh, you know what we should start doing? Just killing all these babies. And everybody had put so much trust in the robots that they didn't even question the abortions that were taking place for whatever reason. And then there's this one woman known as Serena Butler, which is where we get the term Butlerian. She discovers that the robot chose to abort her otherwise very healthy child, and she declares war on the robots and starts what's known as the Butlerian Jihad. And this created a ripple effect throughout all human empires, where you're not allowed to have a computer in the likeness of a human mind. So think about, like, you can still have cars, but it'd have to be like the muscle cars and the hot rods. You weren't allowed to have computers in them. And so it gave rise to humans becoming specialized. So if you've seen like the Star Trek movies where the Vulcans had their little school where the Vulcan children would go and specialize and become super intelligent. Well, there was something known as the Mentats, and there was the Bene Gesserit. The Mentats were supposed to emulate human computers by running calculations mentally by using this substance known as the spice. The Bene Gesserit, on the other hand, used the same substance, but for like psychic powers and physical type things like martial arts, telepathy. They could speak, use their words, and like cause people to do things, or immobilize them with their voice through the nerve inductions. Anyway, crazy stuff like that. Point I'm trying to make is that was all born out of this kind of thing. So I don't know, something interesting to think, like, look far into the future. Maybe we won't have a lot of the things we have today, because a lot of what we have today are from the fruits of the tree of knowledge. So I think there'll be a lot less of that stuff floating around in God's kingdom. Just something to consider. Oh, here's an interesting card. So the Antichrist. Already. So this is what they consider a personality card, and this is the Antichrist depicted here with a crown and has the 666 there. Remember, we mentioned the 18-wheeler thing. I couldn't get a really good picture for the text here, but it just looks like it's all gameplay, and it didn't really have any kind of like no quotes or anything. So I was a little disappointed there, but anyway, still interesting that he's in the deck. So again, eye of the perfect storm. Okay, so that's why I want to put the emphasis on the the eye. They're creating the perfect storm, and the eye is a hurricane doesn't have more than one eye; it only has one eye. So again, the symbolism of the storm. So remember, Trump talked about the storm as well, and so we have to wonder, what's really going on here. Of course, we need to remember that there is the calm in the eye of the storm, and I kind of like to think of that as the sheepfold gate, if you will. Like while the destruction is going on, will be protected by his right hand, the remnant. So whether that's here on earth or in heaven or wherever, just something to keep in mind. But while the storm's going on, this dude's also going to be reaping the whirlwind, as it were. Oh yeah, this one's obviously self-evident. This isn't a freedom of speech issue. This is a decency issue. We're closing you down. Well, that sounds about right. I find it interesting. Welcome back. I find it interesting also that this guy leaves his autograph, and it looks just like a virus. Like if you were going to draw a virus, that's kind of what it would look like, right?
I think all the viruses we see are drawn.
Here's this Frankenfood one looks kind of disgusting. It's got genes from a firefly. Oh, just like the Vax, huh? It's got genes from a firefly, a French fry, and a tomato, and a Toyota. Genetic manipulation creates a tangy taste treat with a special side effect. Okay, so that was that one. And we're almost through them, guys.
Good, because I do actually have to be somewhere in about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. I don't think it'll take much longer. I'm glad I found this one because Christdemokraten, well, that's got Christ in it. Christdemokraten.
Maybe it's Christdemokraten.
Something democracy. Christian Democrats.
Democraten.
That's the German Christian Democrats, actually. I realize now what that is.
Oh, I lost sound. Lost sound from you. And we're almost done and we're getting disconnected. Come on, internet. Come on. Come back to us. Come back to us, NPC. Come back, come back. Oh my goodness. I'll try to call him back. We'll see what happens. We might be done, but I will try to call back. It's not even ringing, so I'm guessing things totally went down. But we'll try one more time in just a moment. Yeah, it doesn't even seem to be ringing. Okay. Well, that's it. I called 3 times. I'm calling it. And I'm sorry, guys. But we love you. And have a great Sunday. Shalom. Peace be with you. And we'll see you live Tuesday, and we'll do another Solomon Report soon. It's going to be busy. I got a gun show next weekend, but I should be able to do maybe a shorter show Sunday, maybe Saturday evening. And then after that, we got a swim meet the next weekend. So we'll see how it goes. I love you all. Peace.
My soul free again. Can you loosen my chains? I come to you like a beggar man who's wasted blessings away. Can you fill me with joy again? Can you heal all my wounds? I'm on my knees like a my hands out to you. No one else loves the way you do, the way you do. No one else loves the way you do, the way you do. By your spirit of grace, can you transform this stubborn man to one who walks in your